Chapter 469. But if you and I really didn't appear in each other's lives, then are you and I still the same person? Yi Huanyan pressed on his shoulder. 6 years of time had eradicated her cowardice. What had been reborn was not only her shell, but also her resolute heart. If you dare to leave me alone for any reason, I'll turn around and ask Naneo to call someone else daddy. You better think carefully. She knew what Ling Han was thinking. He had always been proud and aloof. Now that one of his legs was disabled, he could only watch helplessly from the side. She knew how uncomfortable he felt. The two of them were very close to each other, less than 10 centimeters away. Their breaths mingled, and the warm breath sprinkled on each other's faces. Ling Han was about to let go of her waist when he suddenly felt a weight on his leg. The warm breath smashed down on his face. She hooked her arms around his neck and bit his lips. She sat on his lap in a domineering manner, full of aggression. Most of the time this month had been too depressing. Whether it was physical or mental, it was hard to restrain himself when it came to teasing. Her hand caressed a certain part of his body that had already hardened. She roughly pulled down his pants and rubbed her soft buttocks back and forth across the thin layer of fabric. Ling Han's face gradually turned red, and his hands around her waist gradually tightened. His hands slid down her thighs and into her silk nightgown. He felt 2 plump areas and rubbed them vigorously. Yi Huanyan gritted her teeth. Her hair was messy on her shoulders, and she suppressed the sound of broken moans. In the darkness outside the door, the soft sounds were particularly seductive. A certain someone coughed dryly, and his face was ashen. He took out a cigarette from his pocket and walked towards the balcony without looking back. A certain someone's Adam's apple moved, and his footsteps were light as he felt for the door of a certain bedroom. He opened the door and barged in. The moonlight in the bedroom shone on the bedside, and it shone on a head of black hair that fell like a waterfall onto the pillow. Gu Xinyan's eyes warmed, and he felt for the bedside. Ji Xiaoye had not woken up yet. She was wearing a beige nightgown. Fu Yingxiang helped her change into it, saying that it would make her sleep more comfortable. Looking at the cleavage exposed by the deep V-neck of the nightgown, Gu Xinyan's eyes suddenly became heated. He suddenly remembered the Chinese medicine treatment that Fu Yingxiang had mentioned earlier in the day. Proper physical stimulation can help her wake up as soon as possible. After hesitating for a long time, he carefully lifted the blanket and slid in. The room was filled with spring scenery. Later, when Yi Huanyan asked Ji Xiaoye when she woke up, she stammered for a long time without being able to say anything. She couldn't possibly say that when she woke up, she was being pulled down by a man who was usually dignified but was actually worse than a beast in bed, right? She was jolted awake. Everyone had a sleepless night. The most miserable one was Chen Yin. She was pincered. One was Ji Xiaoye's room, and the other was the bathroom in the living room. Chen Yin covered Naneo's ears and sighed over and over again throughout the night. What kind of situation was this? Why were they still showing off their affection? She really couldn't live with this anymore. In the Manhattan Beach Villa, the porcelain sculptures in the house were all in a mess. A woman's shrill scream almost tore the roof off. You can't even watch a person. What are you doing? They have guns. They have guns? Don't you have guns? Aren't those guns in your hands? Are they toys? Gu Duo was so angry that her whole body was trembling. She casually took a pistol from the table and pointed it at the maid. Why don't I give you a shot to see if this gun works? The maid fell to the ground. Her hands and feet were wrapped in gauze, and she couldn't move. Her face was full of horror. They have a submachine gun in their hands. A submachine gun? Gu Duo's face turned cold. Who took it? Was it a man or a woman? A woman. It's a woman. A woman with a submachine gun. How many people in this world were willing to risk their lives for Gu Xinyan? It was obvious who it was. The next day, at the Four Seasons Villa, the people patrolling the dock saw a boat coming from afar. A group of people took out their guns and aimed at the boat until someone on the boat showed up. A valiant woman walked down from the boat, followed by 2 strong men who looked like bodyguards. Who are you? Raise your hands. Fu Yingxiong frowned and said patiently, "Excuse me, I'm looking for Uncle Smith." She deliberately emphasized the word, uncle. The guard who asked the question immediately changed his expression and looked at his companions behind him, as if asking for their opinion. Wait a minute. Not long after, the silver-haired Smith got down from a car with a gun at his waist. He walked with the same vigor as he did when he was in the Criminal Investigation Unit. When he saw Fu Yingxiong, he showed a loving smile. "Xiaoying, why are you here? We haven't seen each other in a long time." "Uncle, shouldn't you ask your men to put away their guns first?" Fu Yingxiong looked around and smiled meaningfully. Smith glared at everyone. "What are you doing? This is my niece. I watched her grow up. Put away your guns." Everyone put away their guns. Fu Yingxiong then walked up. "Uncle, we haven't seen each other in a long time. I need you to do me a small favor this time." Smith was able to get to where he was today not only because of his martial arts, but also because he was quite shrewd. Hearing her words, he glanced at her and smiled. "As long as you don't ask me to leave my post and ruin the task of guarding this villa, I can help you with whatever you want. After all, I watched you grow up, and I have a good relationship with your father." These words blocked Fu Yingxiong's way of pleading for Wen-yi. She didn't panic and smiled as well. "Uncle, I'm not that capable, and I don't have that great of a relationship with the Four Seasons Villa. I just want you to help me take care of my Aunt Gu. After all, I lived here for a period of time when I was young. Later on, her son helped Owen a lot. I can't owe him this favor for too long, right?" Smith nodded. "It's easy to take care of her. He Xiao didn't ask us to make things difficult for her. Besides, you know that I don't make things difficult for women." "That's right. Uncle Smith is a man of indomitable spirit." "Ha ha ha, it's not convenient to talk here. Since you're here, let's eat here. The food here is very good. You should have eaten before, right?" With that, Smith invited her into the car. The two bodyguards behind Fu Yingxiong wanted to follow, but they were stopped by the guards. Smith explained, "It's very safe here, so you don't have to bring your bodyguards. Let them wait here first. What do you think?" "No problem." Fu Yingxiong waved her hand at them, indicating that they should get on the boat first. "By the way, is there anyone else on this boat?" Smith asked. Fu Yingxiong's expression froze, and a trace of nervousness appeared in her eyes. "What's wrong? My boat is docked at the dock. I'm not going anywhere. Do I need a boat too?" Chapter 470. When Smith saw her conflicted expression, he suddenly stopped in his tracks as he was about to close the door. He put one foot out of the car and walked out again. "Xiaoying, this boat is to prevent any accidents from happening in the villa and to prevent others from suspecting you. After all, you have a close relationship with the eldest young master of the Gu family, so—" "I have a close relationship with Gu Sinian?" Fu Yingxiong curled her lips. "Uncle, how much have you heard? What kind of relationship do you think I have with a man who has repeatedly broken off the engagement with me?" Smith was slightly stunned. A trace of resentment flashed across his eyes, but he still glanced at the boat from the corner of his eyes. Fu Yingxiong's face darkened. "Uncle, you don't trust my character? Even if it's on account of your relationship with my father, I wouldn't do anything to harm you. Isn't your suspicion too disappointing?" "You're right." Smith revealed an anxious expression. "If someone hadn't told me about this, based on my relationship with your father, I wouldn't have guarded against you. Besides, I'm just doing my job and checking the boat." "Someone told you about this?" Fu Yingxiong raised her head and looked at Smith inquisitively. "Uncle, may I ask who this person is?" Smith was slightly stunned and frowned. "If you tell me who's trying to drive a wedge between us, I have to have an idea of who it is, right?" "This?" Fu Yingxiong clenched her fists and showed some anger on her face. "If you don't believe me and believe this person who's trying to drive a wedge between us, then you can go ahead and check. I won't say a word." Smith's frown deepened. Fu Yingxiang simply got out of the car and looked at the guards surrounding the boat. She ordered in fluent English, "You can search the boat as you wish. Other than my 2 bodyguards, I guarantee that no one else will be on the boat." The captain of the guards glanced at Smith, and after getting a nod from him, he boarded the ship and began to search. Smith and Fu Yingxiang walked side by side to the front of the ship and said in a deep voice, "Xiaoying, this is also a way to avoid suspicion. After all, your relationship with the Four Seasons Villa is indeed extraordinary in the eyes of outsiders. You should understand each other. If there are no problems after the investigation, I'll bring you in to see Madame Gu." Fu Yingxiang sneered in her heart, but she did not show it on her face. "According to the current situation, if they want to search my boat that is docked at the pier, then if I enter the villa, won't I be searched?" "You must be joking, Xiaoying." Smith's expression did not change. "It's just that there's a guest in the villa now. The one inside seems to have some grudges with you. When you see her, just treat it as giving uncle some face." "There's a guest in the villa?" Fu Yingxiang's expression froze for a moment before she regained her senses. "It was the one who instigated it, right?" While they were talking, the captain in charge of searching the entire ship had already jumped down from the ship. "Mr. Smith, there's nothing on the ship." Smith waved his hand to signal for him to leave, then turned to look at Fu Yingxiang. "I knew that you wouldn't bring anyone with you on the ship, but to avoid suspicion, I said it from the beginning. Ha ha ha." Fu Yingxiang tugged at the corners of her mouth with a fake smile. "My relationship with the Gu family is not good enough to push myself into the teeth of the storm at this critical juncture." Smith did not comment, and gestured in the direction of the car door, then followed Fu Yingxiang into the car. The car drove past the Four Seasons Villa's Wutong Avenue, all the way to the entrance of the East Court. Smith still did not say who the person who instigated it was, but Fu Yingxiang had already guessed in her heart. The East Court's entrance was tightly shut. Smith opened the car door in a very gentlemanly manner and invited Fu Yingxiang to get out of the car. "My Auntie Gu should be doing well recently. Her health isn't very good." "She's fine, except for He Xiao who comes every 2 days and quarrels with her. Her condition is very stable. She doesn't talk to our people, and her temper is a little bad." The two of them talked as they entered the house. When they walked into the living room, Smith's expression suddenly changed, and he shouted upstairs, "Yiwen." No one answered. Fu Yingxiang frowned. "What's wrong?" "No, this is not right." Smith muttered to himself as he rushed up to the second floor and opened the door to the master bedroom. "What's wrong, Uncle Smith?" Fu Yingxiang asked upstairs. "Stand there and don't move." He suddenly turned around and stood on the stairs, staring at Fu Yingxiang with a vigilant expression. He said coldly, "Just stand there and don't move." Fu Yingxiang frowned and stopped moving forward. "What's wrong?" "When I went to pick you up at the entrance of the villa, she was still there." Smith walked downstairs, his face full of vigilance. "She's gone?" Fu Yingxiang's eyes showed some astonishment, but she quickly regained her composure and said seriously, "You should have seen clearly that I didn't do anything at the entrance of the villa. You also searched my ship, but there was nothing on it. You can't let me be the scapegoat. But it is true that after you came, he disappeared. Xiaoying, tell me, what is your purpose for coming here? Where did you take him?" Fu Yingxiang took a deep breath. "Okay, I came here to see Aunt Gu. You also searched my boat, and I followed you here. Where do you think I can hide her? My boat must still be at the port. Why don't you go and check again? Also, am I the only one in the villa today? Didn't you say that someone warned you that someone wanted to take Aunt Gu away? Isn't he here?" Hearing this, Smith's expression froze, as if he suddenly remembered something. He looked around and confirmed that he and Fu Yingxiang were the only 2 people left in the villa. His face instantly darkened. He frowned and shouted into the walkie-talkie, "Where is the woman who was here just now? And where is Ivan? Find Ivan for me." Not long after he finished speaking, there was a rush of footsteps outside the door. A man drenched in sweat opened the door, and his face was full of fear. He probably heard the voice from the walkie-talkie. The moment he opened the door, he was still holding the walkie-talkie in his hand. He looked up at Smith and said, "My stomach hurts. I just went to the bathroom." "Mr. Smith, what's wrong?" Smith's forehead was about to burst into flames. He kicked the man out of the door. The man screamed and rolled down the stairs. "Idiot, where is the woman here?" The man's face was bruised and swollen. He covered his nose and looked at Smith, who was on the stairs, and said in a trembling voice, "She was here just now. I just went to the bathroom." "Mr. Smith, they must still be in the house." Smith's face darkened. "If you can find Wan Yi and that woman in this house, I will give you my seat, idiot." "Woman?" Fu Wingxiong's voice came from behind Smith. "What woman?" Chapter 471. 10 minutes later, Smith gave the order to search all the boats around the villa through the walkie-talkie. He then activated the guards surrounding the entire Four Seasons villa to conduct a large-scale search. Fu Wingxiong sat on the sofa with a teacup in her hand. Her expression was calm. "Actually, if Uncle had told me earlier that the person who came here was Gu Duo, I would have reminded you earlier to be wary of her." Smith's expression tensed up. "What do you mean?" "You only know that she has a little conflict with me, but you don't know what kind of conflict she has with me, right? Actually, I originally had 2 chances to complete the marriage agreement with Gu Sinian. The first time, Gu Sinian married another woman. The second time, she had something on Gu Sinian to threaten him. I can't change Gu Sinian's own wishes, but she interfered in this matter. Don't you think I should hate her? She wants to marry Gu Sinian. She's going crazy. You heard about the shooting in Los Angeles yesterday, right? Gu Sinian escaped right under her nose. What do you think she can do to find Gu Sinian?" Smith's expression darkened. "You're saying that she took Mrs. Gu away and wanted Gu Sinian to show up and go back obediently?" "I'm just speculating. After all, you said that she was the only guest in this villa other than me. And you've already searched my boat." Smith furrowed his brows. His eyes were filled with rage, and his knuckles made cracking sounds. At this time, the fog was hazy. A speedboat sped away from the west coast of the Four Seasons villa 10 minutes ago. At this time, the person in charge of driving the boat was Gu Chi Channing handed a blanket to the woman beside her with a worried look on her face. "You don't look well. Did they do something to you?" Wan Yi's face was pale. She shook her head gently. "I just didn't eat. It's nothing serious." If she fell into the hands of these people, she was afraid that the food would be tampered with, so these days, she was very cautious about eating and drinking. She would avoid eating if she could. "There's bread under the cabin." Gu Chi's voice came from behind. Chen Yin lowered her head and pulled out a bag of food from the cupboard at her feet. She quickly opened the bag and handed it to Wan Yi. "Thanks. You're welcome." She giggled. "I didn't expect things to go so smoothly this time, much smoother than expected." As she spoke, she lifted her leg and kicked a burlap bag in the middle of the cabin. "It's all thanks to this big sister's help." Following her kick, a muffled groan came from the burlap bag, but no more sound came out. From the sound of it, the mouth was sealed. Wan Yi frowned and looked at the burlap bag at her feet. A touch of coldness appeared on her pale face. "I didn't expect that after so many years, I would have raised an ingrate. If I had known, I wouldn't have let her grow up in the villa more than 30 years ago." Hearing this, Chen Yin was slightly stunned. Only then did she remember that the person in the bag could be considered Wan Yi's half-daughter. Her kick seemed to be inappropriate. 20 minutes ago, in the living room of the Four Seasons villa, Gu Duo was brought in by Smith. The guard at the door, Yi Wan, closed the door and stood guard outside. The fact that Gu Duo had cut ties with the Four Seasons villa was almost a consensus among the people in the circle. However, this matter was also a thorn in Gu Duo's heart. The main purpose of her coming to see Wan Yi was to remove this thorn in her heart. Shortly after Smith sent her in, he received a walkie-talkie and hurriedly left the East Garden, instructing his subordinates to stand guard at the door. The sound of an engine sounded in the courtyard. The car drove away, leaving only silence in the room. Long time no see, Mom. Gu Duo's voice was still as sweet as before, but it was not as delicate as before. Wan Yi sat across from her. Her face was cold and her eyes were distant. I only have one daughter. You can't call me. It was hard not to credit Gu Duo for the incident at the Four Seasons Villa. In addition to the kidnapping of Gu Xinian, it was easy to guess who leaked the inside information. Gu Duo took a deep breath, as if to restrain her temper. She said slowly, I know that you only treat me as a substitute. For so many years, you have never treated me as your biological daughter. After Yi Huanyan came back, I became a superfluous decoration in this villa. You can't wait for me to leave on my own, can you? That's just your own dark thoughts. Wan Yi sneered. Minmin grew up in the villa with you. Why can Minmin live a good life, but you have to humiliate yourself and others over and over again? Gu Min is just a servant. Gu Duo's sudden raised voice startled Wan Yi. She frowned and clenched the sofa cushion under her. You compare me with a servant, and you say that you treat me as your biological daughter? Minmin is not a servant. There is no servant in the villa. You have never understood this since you were a child. Wan Yi's face was full of disappointment. She looked at Gu Duo, and a sentence from many years ago suddenly came to her mind. Many years ago, Gu Ling had told her that human nature may be difficult to change. If she was not urged and allowed to grow freely according to the unique bad habits of human beings, she would only grow into a terrible monster in the end. She had been blinded by guilt and had placed all her emotions on Gu Duo. She had spoiled Gu Duo too much. She had obeyed Gu Duo and raised her to be the person she was today. You're right. I treated you as a substitute all those years ago, as my biological daughter. But what's wrong with that? What did I do wrong to you? It's all your fault. The reason why the whole villa gave up on you was not because we looked at you differently, but because of your own selfishness and madness. You're talking nonsense. Gu Duo's eyes narrowed. You're such a pretentious person who only knows how to find excuses for yourself. Is that so? I'm talking nonsense? Wan Yi took a deep breath. Even if I really let you be my daughter now, you may not be willing, right? I can't bear to see my daughter and son being incestuous. We're not related by blood at all. Gu Duo suddenly stood up and shouted, Why did you adopt me in the first place? If you hadn't adopted me, there would still be a possibility between us. Wan Yi looked at Gu Duo, her eyes full of pity. Do you think that if we hadn't adopted you, there would be a possibility between you and Nian? You would still be Nian's cousin, and Nian would still go to the west to bring Su Ke back. The one who grew up with him would still be Xiao Ying. There would be no place for you by his side. It's not like that. Gu Duo's eyes were almost crazy. She staggered to Wan Yi and reached out to grab her collar. She retorted angrily, It's not like that at all. This is your excuse. It's all an excuse for you to object to us being together. Wan Yi's collar was grabbed by her. Her clothes were in a mess and her face was pale. She only felt that she couldn't breathe and was pressed against her throat. When she came back to her senses, Gu Duo had already grabbed her neck. Chapter 472. Gu Qi and Chan Yin came in from the balcony on the second floor of the East Court. When they came in, the living room was in chaos. Wan Yi's face was blue with her neck being choked. Gu Duo had a crazed look on her face. She seemed to have lost her mind as she desperately tried to strangle her. In a moment of desperation, Chan Yin directly knocked Gu Duo unconscious with a karate chop. Then the two of them carried one person each and left the Four Seasons Villa. Fu Yingxiang's boat had indeed arrived at the dock, and there was no one else in the boat. When they were analyzing the situation the night before, they thought that Gu Duo would be desperate and run to the Four Seasons Villa to make a preemptive strike. So they temporarily decided to take a gamble from the west coast. Gu Duo had secretly transported Gu Xinian and Ling Han away from the west coast, and it was very inconvenient to dock a boat there. They planned to gamble that the undeveloped west coast was Smith's blind spot. While Fu Yingxiang was stalling for time with Smith at the dock, Gu Qi and Chen Yin had quietly sneaked into the villa. Relying on Gu Qi's familiarity with the villa, they directly passed through the thorny forest on the west coast and arrived at the East Court. They had won the bet. As for taking Gu Duo away, it was Gu Qi's impromptu idea. He thought that if Gu Duo and Wan Yi disappeared at the same time, it could divert the attention, so that Smith's suspicion would not all fall on Fu Yingxiang. And according to Fu Yingxiang's intelligence, she must know how to guide this matter. On a private tarmac near Manhattan Beach, a helicopter's propeller was spinning quickly, and the surrounding leaves were rustling. Wan Yi, surrounded by Gu Qi and Chen Yin, arrived in time. Before she even had time to say a word, Yi Huanyan hurriedly helped Wan Yi into the back seat of the helicopter. Chen Ying used both her hands and feet to climb up. Gu Qi, aren't you leaving? Yi Huanyan waved at him. Gu Qi waved his hand and shouted in the wind, I will stay to deal with the rest. Miss Fu is still in the villa. Also, I have to find a place to settle Gu Duo. While speaking, Gu Qi had already walked backward and made a gesture to the pilot. The door of the back seat automatically closed, and the helicopter quickly ascended to the sky. It was a 6-seater helicopter. Gu Sinian was sitting in the front passenger seat, and there were 2 rows of seats facing each other behind. Yi Huanyan and Ling Han were sitting in the row with their backs against the front seat. Yi Huanyan was holding Naneo in her arms, and opposite them were 3 people, Ji Xiaoye, Chen Yin and Wen Yi. To be able to see familiar people was an ecstatic thing for Wen Yi, and she almost burst into tears. Mom, it's okay, it's okay. Yi Huanyan comforted her in a low voice. Wen Yi patted her hand. I'm fine. Where is your father? Have you heard from him? Hearing this, Yi Huanyan shook her head hesitantly. These days, she could barely take care of herself, so how could she have the ability to ask someone at the United Nations Prosecutor's Office? Wen Yi's eyes instantly dimmed. She turned her head to look out the window, and her eyes were slightly red. She had been through a lot in the past few years, but she was still worried. Auntie, Uncle will be fine. After we return to China, I will contact my second uncle as soon as possible. He has friends over there who can help check if there is any news. Ling Han said in a low voice. His voice was somewhat muffled by the sound of the helicopter's propellers. Wen Yi turned her head. After hesitating for a few seconds, she finally showed a trace of relief. She nodded faintly and did not say anything else. At this time, saying too many words of worry would only make others more worried. After flying for a long time, the helicopter finally landed at Fu Yingxiang's private tarmac in Macau. After that, they did not dare to rest and took the earliest flight to Lanjiang City. When they arrived at Lanjiang City International Airport, it was already 2 days later in the morning. The SUV that Gu Qi had arranged brought them to the outskirts of the city. When they got out of the car, Yi Huanyan looked up at the door that seemed to have not changed for so many years. Her eyes were red. The words, Mausoleum, were written on the plaque on the door. Wan Yi got out of the car with the help of Chen Yin. She followed Yi Huanyan's gaze and said hesitantly, Is it the place you told me before, the place where the old madam of the Ling family lived when she was alive? Yi Huanyan nodded. Her voice was a little muffled. Yes. The old madam had been thinking about her and Ling Han until she passed away. Now that she came back in such a sorry state, she felt guilty. Ling Han leaned on his crutches. When he got out of the car, it was a little difficult. Gu Sinian wanted to help him, but he refused. If I have to be like this in the future, I should get used to it in advance. Naneo fell asleep on Chen Yin's shoulder. Ji Xiaoye helped Gu Sinian unload the luggage in the car. The group stood at the door of the old house that had been abandoned for a long time and looked at each other. Yi Huanyan looked back at Ling Han. She had a strange feeling. The red lacquered wooden door suddenly opened a crack. A loud voice pulled everyone back from their thoughts. Ah, young master, why are you back at this time? Your legs, these are... Yi Huanyan looked at the woman who opened the door in disbelief. She was slightly plump, wearing a lace-purple apron, and her hands were stained with flour. Her hair was white, but her legs were still very nimble. She hurriedly opened the door and walked forward. Aunt Zhang, Yi Huanyan called out in a daze. It had been 6 years. She never thought that she would see a familiar face in this house again. The year-old Madame Yang passed away. Aunt Zhang resigned and returned to her hometown. She said that she wanted to help her daughter take care of the children. Uncle Zhang also left with her. After that, until Gu Xinian took her to America, she never returned to the old house. And after returning to the country a year ago, until now, when she was with Ling Han, she never mentioned anything about coming back. Aunt Zhang was slightly stunned when she heard Yi Huanyan call her. She hesitated and looked her up and down. "Young master, this is Yan Yan." These two simple words came out of Ling Han's mouth. They were exceptionally heavy and heavy. Every time he introduced her to his former friends, he would feel this way. "Miss Yan Yan." Aunt Zhang looked confused. She frowned and said, "Young master, are you joking with me? Let's go in first." Ling Han held onto his crutches and interrupted Aunt Zhang's question. Aunt Zhang quickly nodded and looked at Ling Han with distress. "Young master, what's wrong with your leg? You haven't seen it for a year. What happened? Let me help you." "It's okay, Aunt Zhang. Help them arrange a room. We'll be staying at the old house for a while." "Staying for a while? You're not going to the company?" The suburbs were isolated from the rest of the world. Aunt Zhang was old and didn't even watch TV anymore. She didn't know what was going on outside. She thought that Ling Han would come back to stay for a while when it was almost the new year. Chapter 473. In the main hall of the old house, Chen Yin took Naneo to the bedroom to rest, and the others sat in the living room. Aunt Zhang hurriedly made tea and brought it over. Wan Yi thanked her and took a sip. She looked up at Aunt Zhang and said, "How many years has Yan Yan lived here?" Aunt Zhang was slightly stunned. Obviously, she hadn't recovered from the fact that the beautiful woman in front of her was the former Yan Yan. "You are... I forgot to introduce myself. I am Yan Yan's biological mother. My name is Wan Yi. He is Yan Yan's brother." "Sister-in-law, I guess Ling Han didn't tell you that 6 years ago, Nian brought Yan Yan back to the United States for treatment." Aunt Zhang suddenly understood. "You mean Miss Yan Yan didn't die 6 years ago?" Wan Yi nodded and glanced at Ling Han from the corner of her eyes. "She didn't die, but she lost half of her life." Aunt Zhang was a straightforward person. She didn't hear the twists and turns in Wan Yi's words. She immediately turned around and held Yi Huanyan's hand with tears in her eyes. "It's good that you're still alive. It's good that you're still alive. If old Madam were still alive, she would be very happy." Back then, old Madam really hoped that Miss Yan Yan could have a good ending with young master. Wan Yi looked at Aunt Zhang's back and said in a low voice, "The onlooker always sees the game clearly." Wan Yi was a person who couldn't tolerate sand in her eyes. Her daughter had suffered so much for so many years. The sudden change in the villa was all related to Ling Han. Even if he was also a victim, there was still a knot in her heart that she couldn't untie. Aunt Zhang's expression froze slightly. She turned around hesitantly, not knowing how to respond to Wan Yi's words. Even the dullest person would be able to understand the underlying meaning of these words. After a few seconds of silence in the living room, Aunt Zhang suddenly realized something and patted her apron. "By the way, old Madam left something for Miss Yan Yan. I'll look for it." Yi Huanyan only thought that Aunt Zhang was making an excuse to leave this awkward place, so she didn't ask much. She pulled Wan Yi's hand and said, "Mom, you were wronged in the villa. This is all He Zhao's fault. You can't take it out on others. When I was here before, Aunt Zhang was very good to me." Hearing this, Wan Yi was slightly stunned. "There's still someone in the Ling family who treats you well?" These words made a certain someone's face turn paler. "Of course, Grandma is very good to me. Aunt Zhang and Uncle Zhang are very good to me. Uncle Ling is also very good to me. Uncle Ling's younger brother and second uncle's family are also very good to me." "Then why didn't you tell me before? You didn't ask." Then how did they treat you? You can't lie to me. I used to live with Uncle Ling. I would come to the old mansion for dinner on Saturdays and Sundays. Grandma would personally cook lotus seed soup for me. Aunt Zhang's dumplings and glutinous rice balls were delicious. As Yi Huanyan reminisced about the good old days, the atmosphere gradually became harmonious and warm. Gu Xinian and Ji Xiaoye exchanged a look and smiled tacitly. The two of them broke out in cold sweat for Ling Han just now. Let's go out and have a smoke. Gu Xinian lowered his voice and glanced at Ling Han. In the corridor outside the door, a thin and long cigarette was held between his slender fingers. The curling smoke drifted with the wind, blurring the expression on his face. Why did you think of bringing us to live here? Gu Xinian asked. It's more remote here, and the house is big enough. I'm afraid it's not safe to live in other places. Is that the only reason? Ling Han was silent for a few seconds, then said in a deep voice, Uncle told me before that after Yen Yen returned to the Gu family, Aunt has been very worried. She feels more guilty than before, and her temper is not very good. I think this is all caused by the knot in her heart. I can accept that she has feelings for me, but she doesn't seem to know that other than me, everyone in the Ling family is very good to Yen Yen and likes her very much. All these years, Yen Yan's life is actually not as painful as she thought. So you want to lessen the burden in her heart? I hope it will be effective. It's already very effective. Gu Xinian exhaled a puff of smoke and turned back to look at the living room. Yi Huanyan was talking about the battle of wits and courage with the two sisters of the Ling family, which made Wen Yi laugh out loud. If your brother was also here, he would definitely help you treat those two little girls. You don't know that your brother was much more naughty than you when he was young. I heard from Gu Lu that. What are you going to do next? Gu Xinian turned back and looked at Ling Han. Returning to China was only the first step. The investigation of the smuggling case would not only cause Gu's group to temporarily close down, but it would also cause Pleasure, which was the source of the smuggling, to suffer even more. On the way here, Gu Xinian had seen the news. All the employees of Pleasure Group had been dismissed, and all the subsidiaries under the company had been closed down for investigation. Even the company's building had been sealed. There are two directions. One is to find the main culprit of the smuggling case, find out his background, and find out who he is related to within Pleasure. Then, prove that he only has a personal relationship with the employees or shareholders of Pleasure, and prove that he is not related to Pleasure itself. The second direction is the funds. I need to get Pleasure back as soon as possible. Now that those shares are not in my hands, I have no control over them. The two directions you mentioned are not easy. Gu Xinian put out the cigarette and said seriously, the first direction is that the main culprit is in jail now. Smugglers like them usually have a complicated background. There are all kinds of people in all walks of life, so it will be difficult to investigate thoroughly. The second direction is the funds problem. The Gu family can't even protect itself now, so we can't help you. The air was silent. After a while, Ling Han nodded slightly. I know, there will be a way. Why do I feel that you are not worried at all? Gu Xinian raised the corner of his mouth, revealing a devilish smile, and looked at Ling Han inquisitively. Ling Han looked up, his expression indifferent. He seemed to hesitate for a while, then said, I am worried, but to be honest, compared to worry, I am more grateful. I believe that this difficult situation will pass. If I can help, this is like a chance given to me by God, a chance to make up for my past mistakes. He also yearned for a stable life, but he always felt that he owed too much. If he didn't do something, he wouldn't be able to make up for his past mistakes. To him, the storm today was nothing compared to the pain of not being accepted by the Gu family, or not being able to untie all the knots in his heart with Yi Huanyan. You are so sincere. Gu Xinian narrowed his eyes, his expression thought-provoking. He reminded him kindly, but don't say this in front of my mother. Otherwise, she will throw whatever she has at your head right now. After all, my father is still locked up in the prosecutor's office, and you are still grateful. The sound of footsteps came from the corridor. It was somewhat hurried, accompanied by heavy breathing. Ling Han also put out the cigarette and looked in the direction of the sound with Gu Xinian. Aunt Zhang's figure was coming from the corner of the corridor. She was chubby and looked very chubby. Aunt Zhang was even fatter than 6 years ago. Although her legs were nimble, it was still difficult for her to walk. At this time, she was carrying a black wooden box in her hands. As she walked, she said, "I found it. The thing that old madam left for Miss Yen Yen." Chapter 474. Aunt Zhang walked into the living room with the black box in her arms. Ling Han and Gu Xinian looked at each other and followed her in. Ling Han had some impression of what the old madam had left for Yi Huanyan, but he didn't know what it was exactly. The black box was placed on the table in the main hall. Aunt Zhang had polished it until it was shiny. There was a shiny yellow brass lock hanging on it. It looked like it had been there for a long time. "This box is for me?" Yi Huanyan asked hesitantly. "Yes." Aunt Zhang took out a handkerchief from her pocket as she spoke. Her expression was respectful. "The key has been with me for more than 6 years. I've always kept it close to me and didn't dare to lose it." As she spoke, she unfolded the handkerchief, revealing a brass key that was half the length of a palm. She held the handkerchief in front of Yi Huanyan. "When the old madam was alive, she was most worried about you and the young master. There should be something important in here that she wanted me to pass to you. Originally, it should have been given to you the year after the old madam passed away, but that year... Sigh. Let's not talk about it anymore. It's good that you're back. It's returned to you." Yi Huanyan took the key. She only felt that it was heavy. It was as heavy as the trust she had felt when she rubbed against the dying old madam's sickbed many years ago. She had been separated from her parents since she was young, but she had never lacked kinship. Whether it was Jiang Meilan or the 2 husbands Jiang Meilan had married later on, the kinship she had received far exceeded what she had given. Therefore, there would always be flaws in life. With perfect familial love, it would cut a knife in your love or friendship, and let you experience bitterness and bitterness. With a click, the brass lock opened in Yi Huanyan's hands. Wan Yi also stood up and looked at the black box. After opening the black box, Yi Huanyan was stunned. "This is..." Inside was a metal box that was slightly smaller than the black box. It looked like a mini safe. Facing the ceiling was a rotating lock with 6 digits. At the moment, it was stuck at the 000000 position. Naturally, it couldn't be opened. "What's the password?" Yi Huanyan asked. Aunt Zhang was slightly stunned. She hesitated and asked, "Is there a password? Old madam only gave me this key, but I have never opened it." Yi Huanyan looked at Ling Han. Ling Han also had a puzzled look on his face. "There's something inside." Ji Xiaoye's voice suddenly sounded. Her gaze fell on the gap between the black box and the metal safety box. She could clearly see a craft paper envelope. "It's a letter." Ji Xiaoye pulled out the envelope and handed it to Yi Huanyan. "The password may be inside the letter. It's probably something more private. We won't read it. You take a look." Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. She nodded and lowered her head to take the envelope. The dark brown envelope was sealed with red wax. It was stamped with old madam's personal seal. No one had opened it for so many years, so the seal was very neat. Everyone around Yi Huanyan returned to their original seats and sat down. Aunt Zhang said that the kitchen was cooking supper and that she was going to deliver it to Chen Yin and Naneo in the bedroom. She then left. The light in the living room was dim, and the night was quiet outside. The sound of paper flipping was particularly clear in the dark night. It was as if the ancient past was being flipped open. It made people afraid to disturb that memory, so they couldn't help but hold their breaths and not dare to make a sound. "Yen Yen girl, seeing a letter is like seeing it. When you see this letter, I will have been gone for more than a year. The child in your belly should already be able to speak. I don't have the luck to hold a great-grandchild, but I still want to thank you. Not only did you continue the Ling family's bloodline, but you also gave me some comfort. Before I leave, I will feel much more at ease." Yi Huanyan gripped the edge of the letter tightly. Her eyebrows trembled slightly. It was as if she could see old Madam's face when she was writing in front of the desk. In this life, I believe that I have lived a magnanimous life. I have given all my effort to the Ling family, and I have a clear conscience. If you want to talk about what I feel guilty about, it is probably my son Dongming's marriage. Even though I was forced by the situation and had no choice, when I saw that Ling Han had grown into such a cold child, I knew that I was short-sighted back then. Yi Huanyan could almost guess what old Madam was going to say. She couldn't bear to read it, and her eyes turned red. When you rejected the blind dates arranged by your relatives and friends and came to me to tell me that you really like Ling Han, I suddenly remembered that you and Han are not biological siblings. So I decided that you are the daughter-in-law of the Ling family, my only granddaughter-in-law. Han is indifferent and cold by nature. He hides everything in his heart. For so many years, I have never seen him care about any girl. Only you are in our eyes, but we have never said it out loud. The mist in her eyes made Ling Han feel alarmed. He frowned and walked forward hesitantly. His gaze fell on the letter. I remember the failed marriage between Dong Ming and Qing Wan. It's not anyone else's fault but mine. I didn't take Dong Ming's feelings into consideration back then because of my own selfish interests. After so many years of marriage, Qing Wan was aloof and never took the initiative to ask for anything. Dong Ming also treated her with respect. All these years, instead of being husband and wife, they were more like friends. In the first year of marriage, the child was sent to the United States not long after they were born. There was no trace of life in the house at all. I went to their place twice to take a look, but then I stopped going. Then Qing Wan passed away. Less than half a year later, you moved in with your mother. At first, I didn't like your mother. There were many things that I knew without others telling me. As I grew older, I understood. However, you were still a child, innocent and naive. You were much more considerate than Han, who had just returned to China. You were even the kind of granddaughter that I had looked forward to back then. You often came to accompany me and made me happy. When one is old, they don't want much. It's nothing more than having someone to talk to. It's good that you don't dislike this old woman. You don't want to see me like this. When he read this, Ling Han's eyes were complicated and showed some sadness. At first, he thought that his grandmother didn't know anything. She was only blinded by Jiang Milan's attentiveness and took care of the mother and daughter. He didn't think that there was such a layer of reason. The letter is too short, and I'm afraid that if I write too much, you won't have the patience to read it, so I won't say those useless words. It's just that I regret that I wasn't able to see your wedding with Han, and that I didn't see Han, recognize his true feelings for you. I always thought that if I handed Han, to you, you would definitely love and protect him for the rest of your life. After I leave, you would also be at ease. But seeing Han, bossing you around like that, I always feel a little sorry for you. That child Han, is a little too stubborn, like his mother, so please give me face and forgive her. Forgive me. Yi Huanyan's hot tears streamed down her cheeks and gradually turned cold. Chapter 475. The password to the safe is with the lawyer. It's not that Grandma doesn't trust you. Han is naturally suspicious, but I can see that he cares a lot about you. If the child's matter is confirmed, I think he will gradually understand. So this paternity test result is not for the sake of this relic. I want you to do it for Han to see and let him know that you are hell-bent on following him. Yi Huanyan covered her mouth. Her voice was choked with sobs as tears welled up in her eyes. The date on the letter was 2 days before the old lady's death. Yi Huanyan didn't dare to say that she could fully understand the old lady's feelings when she wrote this letter, but she could feel the old lady's concern for her deceased husband from the blood and tears in this letter. Even when the old lady was on her deathbed, the younger generation couldn't let her leave in peace. Ling Han's expression was forbearing, but the rims of his eyes were red. Wan Yi walked up behind Yi Huanyan at some point and patted her shoulder. Don't be sad. The dead are gone. The living carry on the will of the dead is the greatest respect for the dead. Yi Huanyan looked at Wan Yi in shock. Her voice was hoarse and choked with sobs. Mom, you. When E was the most impatient with emotional sentiments. She waved her hand and interrupted her. That's enough. Let's do a paternity test tomorrow and let a certain person see if the child is really his. Ling Han's face paled. He had nothing to say. If he still had any doubts about Yi Huanyan at this point, then he really wasn't human. Wan Yi's words were obviously said in anger, but they stabbed him in the heart and cut him again and again. Blood flowed. After a while, his hoarse voice sounded in the living room. Okay. Naturally, he didn't need a paternity test to prove anything, but this relic had to be opened with a paternity test. The thing that he was obsessed with back then had become something that others were forcing him to do now. He had mixed feelings. The next day, the weather was good. Yi Huanyan took Naneo and Ling Han to the hospital early in the morning. After the paternity test, they went home to wait for the results. On the way back, they bought Naneo's favorite strawberries. For the whole morning, Naneo lay in the rocking chair in the corridor and basked in the sun like an old man. Ling Han sat beside him and fed him strawberries one by one. Ji Xiaoye leaned against Gu Xinyan's shoulder and happened to see this scene from the living room. She smiled. Good fellow, he finally met someone who can control him. He's considered a 24 filial stay-at-home dad, right? Gu Xinyan put an arm around her shoulder. If you give birth to a child for me, I can do it too. Hearing this, Ji Xiaoye blushed. She clenched her fists and hammered his chest. What are you talking about? You're asking someone else to give birth to a child for you. What do you mean by someone else? Fu Yingxiang. She's so capable and knows everything. If she married you, she might have already given birth to a child. Hearing this, Gu Xinyan's expression froze. There was a complicated look in his eyes. Xiaoyu, you. Seeing that there was something wrong with his expression, Ji Xiaoye was stunned. That's not what I meant. I'm not angry. I just said it casually. As she spoke, her voice became softer and softer. I always feel that I'm not as good as her in any way. She's so good that I don't even dare to be jealous of her. So I think that if you want to be with her, I won't stop you. She suddenly raised her head. She looked determined. Gu Xinyan furrowed his brows. What do you mean? Yi Huanyan brought Aunt Zhang's lotus seed soup from the kitchen and helped prepare lunch. Although Aunt Zhang didn't want her to help, it was different now. There weren't many servants in the old mansion. It was impossible for Aunt Zhang to cook for so many people. After the dishes were ready, Yi Huanyan washed her hands and went to the bedroom to ask Wen Yi to come out for lunch. However, she saw that Wen Yi was sitting on the sofa. She didn't know when she had opened an old photo album. Mom, it's time to eat. Yi Huanyan reminded her softly. Wen Yi raised her head. Is this when you were in your teens? Following Wan Yi's finger, Yi Huanyan saw an old yellowed photo in the middle of the album. She didn't know if it was taken more than 10 years ago. At that time, she was wearing a red dress and looked like a fireball huddled in the snow. Her face was covered in snow. Ling Zhan was standing next to her. She reached out to shield her from the snow with a worried look on her face. I don't remember clearly. There are these photos every year. As long as it snows, I will always have a snowball fight with Ling Zhan and the others. I don't know who took these photos. It's signed by you. Wan Yi pointed at the bottom right corner of the photo and said softly. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. It was true. Then it must be second uncle who took these photos. I don't know when second uncle developed these photos and sent them to grandma. He is so thoughtful. Yi Huanyan smiled. Suddenly, she saw Ling Li, who was wearing a black dress, holding a snowball in her hand. She looked like she was facing death calmly like Huang Jiguang when he was bombing a bunker. Her face was full of resentment. Yi Huanyan smiled. It should be when she was 24 years old. It was her natal year, so she wore red. This young lady in black is Ling Li, second uncle's second daughter. She was in her rebellious phase back then. Her temper was not on the same level as mine. Every year, We would fight on the first 2 days we met. Where is this child now? Wan Yi asked. In America. She should be in university. Yi Huanyan took a deep breath. After Grandma passed away, they probably didn't come back. I went to the mountain villa and didn't see them again. Wan Yi nodded. You actually had a good time when you were young. Yes, it was quite good. Yi Huanyan sat down beside her. So you don't have to feel burdened, and you don't have to feel like you owe me. When I was young, there were many people who were very good to me. As for emotional matters, even if I grew up by your side, it might not be smooth sailing. This is my own fate. Wan Yi finally exhaled slowly, as if it had been accumulating for a long time. Slowly, she heaved a sigh of relief. Then, Mom, let's go eat. Lunch was laid out on the table. Yi Huanyan thought that during this period of time, everyone's mood was not very good, so she specially made a few more dishes, all of which were her best dishes, to liven up the atmosphere. But things always went against her wishes. Not long after lunch, she suddenly realized that the atmosphere at the table was very gloomy. Gu Xinian and Ji Xiaoye did not know what the problem was, but the two of them only focused on eating the rice in their bowls, looking absent-minded. Yi Huanyan spoke a few times, but no one responded. Naneo had just returned to China and was still jet-lagged. After eating a few mouthfuls, he said that he was sleepy and wanted to go to bed. Chen Yin, who was currently acting as the nanny, could only hurriedly eat a few mouthfuls of rice and then take him back to the room to rest. Wan Yi was even more so. She was worried about Gu Hang every day, so her lack of appetite had become a habit. After eating a few mouthfuls, she said that she was full. Yi Huanyan could only put the red braised pork in Ling Han's bowl and look at him expectantly, waiting for him to say something to warm up the atmosphere. Chapter 476. Ling Han had just eaten 2 mouthfuls and was about to speak when his phone rang. He put down his chopsticks and looked at the caller ID. His expression tensed up as he looked at Yi Huanyan apologetically and answered the call. Is that so? Okay, I got it. I'm on my way. Where are you going? Yi Huanyan stood up. Ling Han had already rushed out of the living room and was some distance away. She raised her voice and shouted, Aren't you going to eat? Ling Han did not seem to hear her. Even though he was using his walking stick, he walked like the wind. Seeing him like this, Yi Huanyan felt that he had something urgent to attend to, so she got up and hurried after him. Ling Han walked to the main entrance and pulled open the red door. There was a black Rolls-Royce parked at the entrance. Gu Qi looked weathered. The moment he opened the car door, his black woolen coat and felt hat could not hide his aura. It was the kind of aura that came from someone who had been through a lot and was able to maintain his composure at all times. Dad! Yi Huanyan exclaimed in surprise as she looked at the person in disbelief. Gu Qi removed his hat and smiled lovingly at Yi Huanyan. I'm sorry to have made you worry. Yi Huanyan led Gu Qi through the long corridor and into the dining hall in the backyard. Wan Yi had her head lowered as she stared at the rice in her bowl with a dull expression. She had no appetite. Mom, look who's here. Her excited voice did not fit in with the atmosphere in the dining hall. Wan Yi raised her head in astonishment and looked at the newcomer perfunctorily. However, the moment she saw Gu Hang, the dullness in her eyes seemed to have been refreshed, and they shone brightly again. She had always been a calm person. She staggered to her feet and knocked over the cups and plates on the table. Ji Xiaoye helped her up, but she saw her rush around the table like a gust of wind and throw herself on Gu Qi. The two of them did not say anything and just hugged quietly for a while. They were a married couple who had gone through countless trials and tribulations before and after their marriage. Some words did not need to be said, but they were already in sync with each other. All right, the children are watching. Gu Ling finally opened his mouth and gently patted his wife's back. Wan Yi wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes, sniffled, and said rudely, I've endured for so many days without crying. These little brats should be satisfied. Everyone laughed, and the atmosphere immediately became harmonious. Aunt Zhang had already added another set of cutlery. Yi Huanyan pulled Gu Hang to sit beside Wan Yi. After everyone was seated, Wan Yi took the lead and asked, "How did you come back?" Gu Heng glanced at Ling Han. "This is all thanks to Ling Han." Wan Yi was slightly stunned. Everyone's eyes fell on Ling Han. "What did you do?" Yi Huanyan asked hesitantly. Ling Han's expression was indifferent. "I seem to have said before that my second uncle has a friend in the FBI who can help me ask about Uncle Gu's situation. However, I didn't expect that my second uncle would be able to help me bring him out directly. As for the specific situation, I have to ask my second uncle." "Second uncle helped?" Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. What exactly does second uncle do for a living? The nature of Ling Dongyu's job had always been a mystery. She had always thought that Ling Dongyu was an ignorant rich second-generation heir who had hooked up with the Kesley family to earn a place in the United States. Ling Han shook his head. "Second uncle didn't say anything." "Actually, you don't have to ask your second uncle about this," Gu Ling said. Gu Hang said, "The prosecutor's office that arrested me didn't have enough evidence to begin with. They couldn't completely accuse me of being involved in the smuggling case. As for why they insisted on putting me in jail, it was just a ploy from behind the scenes." Everyone was well aware that this person was none other than He Xiao. "Then is it appropriate for second uncle to send my father back to China? Isn't he supposed to cooperate with the investigation?" Yi Huanyan asked anxiously, "Could it be that he broke out of prison?" Gu Heng's face twitched. "Do you think your father looks like someone who's used to breaking out of prison?" Hearing this, Yi Huanyan awkwardly retracted her words. She was about to say that breaking out of prison was a serious crime. "I'll still cooperate with the investigation. Mr. Ling helped me by letting me leave the prosecutor's office temporarily. However, I won't be able to move freely. I'll still be grounded in certain places. The prosecutor's office gave me a choice. Between the United States or China, I chose to stay here. So now outside." Ji Xiaoye hesitated for a moment. "Are we surrounded?" "No one." Gu Ming reached out his hand and revealed the watch on his wrist. "It's a global positioning system. If I leave this house within a 5-mile radius, it will automatically trigger the alarm. The people from the prosecutor's office will immediately carry out the plan to arrest me. What's the difference between that and being locked up there?" Yi Huanyan frowned. She raised her hand and touched the watch on Gu Ming's wrist. "Can you take this off?" Gu Ming retracted his hand and pulled his shirt down to cover the watch. "It's different from being locked up in the prosecutor's office. At least the food here is much better than that. You don't have to worry about your mother suddenly breaking down and crying." "Who's crying? Are you done?" When he punched his shoulder unhappily, a trace of red appeared on her face. Gu Ming raised his eyebrows. "Fine, you didn't cry." "I did, okay." Yi Huanyan's heart was filled with warmth when she saw her biological father talking to her mother like he was coaxing a child. In fact, happiness was very simple. The whole family lived together in harmony and happiness. Even if they didn't live in a place like the Four Seasons Villa, or even a place as big as the old house, as long as everyone was there, they would be very happy. Unfortunately, this happiness didn't last long. As the head of the family and the pillar of the family, Wen Yi completely returned to her previous arrogant and domineering self after Gu Ming returned. First, she criticized the structure of the entire old house. Then, she was dissatisfied with what Ling Han had done. She was nitpicking at the bones in an egg. "The strawberries you bought are too big. They're obviously sprayed with pesticides. I want the natural kind, the imported kind. Naneo is still growing. If you let him eat something bad, I won't let you go." Wan Yi leaned against the rocking chair. There was a black sandalwood coffee table between her and Naneo. On the table was a box of freshly washed strawberries. They were bright red, which was quite rare in this season. Both the grandmother and grandson were basking in the sun with contented expressions. Now did not have any objections to the strawberries and ate happily. Only Wen Yi nagged from time to time, saying that Ling Han could not do this well, nor could he do that well. Ling Han listened respectfully and didn't refute a word. Gu Ming came down from the second floor and shook her head helplessly. Only you can stand my mother's character. She's so irritable at such an old age. Ling Han will drive her crazy sooner or later. Yi Huanyan held a book and couldn't read a word. Out of sight, out of mind. Shouldn't you go to the company to prepare for your movie? Gu Ming looked up at her and reminded her, "You're holding the book upside down." Yi Huanyan put the book on the table indifferently and said seriously, "I'm afraid that if I leave, my mother will torture Ling Han to death." "Your mother is just casually nagging. She's old. You should be more understanding." Gu Ming looked downstairs and smiled. "Do you want me to say something good for you?" Chapter 477. After a few days at the prosecutor's office, Gu Heng's attitude towards Ling Han seemed to have changed a lot. Since he had spoken, Yi Huanyan believed that he would give Ling Han a way out in front of Wen Yi. In fact, she had been hanging around Gu Heng at home for the past 2 days because she had been waiting for him to say that. After that, she would pack up her things and move back to Haiyan Media. "Why do you have to move back to the office?" Wen Yi was a little dissatisfied. She stood in front of Yi Huanyan's car door and refused to move. Yi Huanyan helplessly fastened her seatbelt. "If it weren't for the fact that the old house is too far away from the city center, I would also like to drive back every night. The movie has been approved for the 3rd time. This time, the control is very strict. If there is any problem in the movie, I will have to deal with it in time. Just stay here. My brother is with you, right?" Wen Yi sighed. "Your brother and your father are locked in the study all day long to discuss countermeasures. Originally, Xiao Yu was there to talk to me, but your brother is such a troublemaker. I don't know why he keeps arguing with her. Now that Xiao Yu has moved back to the city center, you have to leave too." "What about Xiao Wu? Isn't Xiao Wu staying here to accompany you?" "Oh, don't mention it. What kind of habit does Xiao Wu have? She wakes up at 5 in the morning to practice martial arts. She's so noisy. She's even more annoying than Gu Min." Okay. Xiao Wu is going to practice martial arts in the morning. She's used to it after so many years. I'll ask her to be more careful and go to another courtyard to practice martial arts, okay? Anyway, this mansion is too small. It can't be compared to our villa." Wen Yi leaned against her car window and touched her face with an aggrieved expression. Yi Huanyan burst out laughing. "Mom, you can say this in front of Ling Han, but don't say it in front of your own family. When you and my dad were looking for or in South Africa, you even slept in the slums, right?" Wen Yi pursed her lips. "How is it the same? Now that I'm old, shouldn't I live in a more spacious place? Then why don't I ask Aunt Zhang to help you tidy up West Court, and you can live there alone? Is it big enough?" "Stinking brat. All right, Mom, I'm really leaving. I have an appointment with the publicity department to discuss the movie poster." Wen Yi was just chatting with Yi Huanyan for a while, trying to find something to talk about. When it was time to leave, she stood up straight and waved at her with a smile on her face. In fact, Yi Huanyan knew that Wen Yi was quite satisfied with this kind of life. On the way to Haiyan Media, they passed by the Pleasure Group building. Just as Gu Qi had said, the entire building had been sealed. The entrance was very bleak. The once glorious building was now only a dark lobby, without a trace of light. After Ling Han lost control of the Pleasure Group, the whole Pleasure Group was on the decline. Umbo and his son were tricked by Gu Duo and He Xiao. They had just gotten control of the company, and before they could do anything, a smuggling case broke out. Ling Han was not involved, and the father and son were the scapegoats. They were still under investigation at the police station. Yi Huanyan parked her car in front of the entrance and looked through the front passenger window at the familiar building. She had an indescribable feeling in her heart. Knock, knock, knock. She heard someone knocking on the window behind her. She was stunned and turned around. Xiao Dong was standing outside the window with a happy expression. She quickly rolled down the window. "Xiao Dong. I thought it looked like your car from afar. Now that I'm here, it's really you. Why are you here? Is there any new progress in the company's case? Yi Huanyan shook her head. I am just passing by. I am on my way to the office. Xiao Dong sighed. I see. Yi Huanyan saw Xiao Dong in his office attire and asked. Xiao Dong, have you changed to a new job? Xiao Dong pursed his lips and replied. Not yet. I went to apply for a new job today, and I saw your car parked here. I thought there is some new progress in the company, and that's why I am here. Yi Huanyan was a little surprised. Most of the people in the group have changed jobs, right? Why are you looking for a new job? Although Ling Han is not in charge of pleasure now, his assistants and secretaries had been working for him for many years. He had given them recommendation letters before he left, and he can introduce them to jobs in the industry. Xiao Dong is the current secretary of the secretaries, and he should be able to find a new job. If possible, I still want to return to the company to work. Xiao Dong lowered his head and said softly. Yi Huanyan was stunned and felt touched. Oh. Xiao Dong suddenly looks up. Sister Yan Yan, are you still using your old phone number? Can you tell me if there are any new developments in the company? I will be back as soon as possible. Yes. It's still the old phone number. Good. Xiao Dong looked at his watch. It's almost time for my interview. Sister Yan Yan, I will not delay you from going to the office. I will make a move first. Okay. Yi Huanyan slowly rolled up the car window. The rearview mirror reflected the direction in which Xiao Dong was running away in her high heels. She frowned and turned around to take a look. Venture Media. Pleasure is the media company opposite the Pleasure Group. They have been developing rapidly in the past few years, and they are trying to acquire Pleasure Group. Everyone in the industry knew that Huanyu Group was a hot potato now. It seemed to have a strong foundation, but no one knew what the result of the smuggling case would be. So even if there were people who wanted to buy it, they didn't dare to make a move at this time. Wan Shiyu and Wan Shiyu might be desperate when they are released from the prosecutor's office. If that's the case, it is possible to sell the company to Venture Media at a low price. Thinking of this, Yi Huanyan's frown deepened. At Haiyan Media, Gu Qi had already devoted himself to work for a week. He seemed to have completely forgotten about the gloomy atmosphere at the Four Seasons Villa and only treated himself as an employee of Haiyan Media, working conscientiously. When he saw Yi Huanyan, he entered the office with a stack of documents. These are the 3 posters given by the design department. Which one do you want to choose? Yi Huanyan stared at the posters for a few seconds. What do you think? Gu Qi pointed to the middle poster without hesitation. It has a rich meaning, does not step on the red line, and is creative. Then I will choose this one. Yi Huanyan put down her coat and looked indifferent. She was only interested in the movie itself. Someone else will take care of the publicity. How about the finished movie? Have you sent it to all the cinemas? Some of them have not arrived yet. We will give them the keys when the movie premieres. After the results of the 3rd review came out, the entire production team heaved a huge sigh of relief and officially entered the promotion work of the movie. Hey, you can't go in. There was a commotion at the door. Chapter 478. By the time Yi Huanyan looked up, the door to the office had been violently pushed open. Gu Qi turned around in displeasure and chided, "What's going on? Don't you know that I'm in the middle of a discussion with President Gu?" Xiao Zhang, who was in the secretary's office, had a look of panic on her face. "Assistant Gu, I couldn't stop him. He insisted on coming in." She was referring to the culprit who had forced the door open, Mr. Song Xiaobo. Yi Huanyan's brain short-circuited when she saw Song Xiaobo. How could she have forgotten about this fellow? She had been overseas for some time and had been staying in the old mansion in the suburbs ever since she had returned. She had not been in contact with Song Xiaobo. "Song Xiaobo, what are you trying to do now?" Gu Qi's face was full of anger. "Didn't I say that you were only allowed to stay upstairs in the apartment and not go downstairs?" Song Xiaobo's face was full of anger as he shouted, You even told me that I would be able to see her very soon. Yi Huanyan looked in the direction that Song Xiaobo was pointing at and quickly realized that the culprit was most likely herself. You liar. Song Xiaobo looked at Gu Qi in exasperation. You're just stopping me from seeing her. What a troublemaker. Gu Qi's face darkened. Where's the security? Get the security to drag him out. Yi Huanyan quickly stood up. Hey, wait a minute, Gu Qi. Gu Qi frowned when he heard Yi Huanyan's voice. He lifted his head and glanced at the secretary. The secretary tactfully left and closed the door behind her. There were only 3 people left in the room. Song Xiaobo glared at Gu Qi angrily, then walked towards Yi Huanyan. During this period of time, he had been living in the apartment on the top floor of Haiyan Media. He tinkered with his computer code every day and did not go out much. Before Yi Huanyan left with Chen Yin and the others, she instructed Gu Qi to take care of him. Gu Qi also arranged for his secretary to send him some food and drinks from time to time. Everything had been peaceful. After the incident at the Four Seasons Villa, Naneo used a self-made program to chat with Song Xiaobo at the hotel. The two of them communicated for about 3 days before Song Xiaobo contacted Gu Qi and told him about what happened in Los Angeles. Therefore, Gu Qi had always had a problem with him. When he looked at him, it was no different from looking at a retard. You've been looking for me for the past 2 days? Yi Huanyan asked. What do you mean by 2 days? I've been looking for you for half a month, but he didn't let me contact you. He said you were busy and asked me to wait for you to come back. When did you come back? Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. He lifted his head and glanced at Gu Qi. Coffee. Gu Qi handed the coffee to Yi Huanyan. His expression was indifferent. Second Miss also has things to do after she returned to China. I told you to wait for her to come to the company. Song Xiaobo's face darkened. You're setting me up, Yi Huanyan. You'll be at a disadvantage in the future if you keep this kind of person by your side. Yi Huanyan held the coffee and raised his eyebrows. He glanced at Gu Qi's cold and sarcastic expression from the corner of his eye. He smiled helplessly and asked Song Xiaobo, Why are you looking for me? I'm here now. You can tell me. Song Xiaobo looked anxious. What else do you want? Where's Minmin? Did Minmin come back with you? Yi Huanyan's smile deepened. He lifted his eyes and glanced at Gu Qi. Didn't you ask Gu Qi? I did, but he doesn't know anything. He didn't say anything and just asked me to wait for you to come back. Yi Huanyan held back his laughter. Then do you know who Gu Qi is? Who else could he be? He's your assistant. Song Xiaobo lifted his head and looked at him with disgust. He added, He's a shrewd man. Yi Huanyan held the cup with both hands and smiled. Yes, this shrewd man is Minmin's older brother. Song Xiaobo's expression froze. Older brother? Yes, he's her biological brother. Yi Huanyan raised his eyebrows. He stood up from the sofa with his coffee and walked towards his desk. So if you have any questions about Minmin, you can ask him. There's no one in this world who knows Minmin better than he does. Song Xiaobo's lips twitched. He lifted his head and looked at Gu Qi in disbelief. Gu Qi's lips curved into a cold smile. He glanced at him before lifting his head to look at Yi Huanyan. President Gu, I'll discuss the poster with the design department and publicity department. If you have any other questions, feel free to look for me. Yi Huanyan nodded. He looked at the dumbstruck Song Xiaobo and lowered his head to take a sip of coffee. He immediately felt refreshed. She had always known that Song Xiaobo was an idiot who couldn't take care of himself. However, she didn't expect that he didn't even know that Gu Qi was a shareholder. He even pointed at Gu Qi's nose and scolded him for being shrewd. This was in front of her. She didn't know what kind of nasty words he said behind her back. How could he still want to woo her sister? It could be said that it was wishful thinking. Yi Huanyan. Song Xiaobo adjusted his glasses. He looked like he wanted to say something but stopped himself. If I were you, I would chase after him right now and apologize to Gu Qi then. I would do as he says and go wherever he wants me to. Yi Huanyan didn't even lift his head. It was easy to guess that this rascal was at a loss of what to do now. Just as he finished speaking, there was a light click from the office door. When Yi Huanyan lifted his head again, Song Xiaobo had already left. He was quite proactive. But when he mentioned Gu Min, Yi Huanyan hesitated for a moment. She recalled that Gu Min had called her last night, but she hadn't picked up the call. It was too late, so she hadn't called back. At this thought, she took out her cell phone and called Gu Min. The call was picked up very quickly. Gu Min's voice sounded a little pleased. "Hello, 2nd Mississippi. What a pleasant voice. What are you doing?" "I just finished soaking in the hot spring. I'm going to have lunch now. After lunch, I'm going to get some sun." "Do you look like you're under house arrest? Isn't this too outrageous? What can I do? After Madam was taken away by you guys, Smith still has to continue guarding our villa. He can't be bothered with me and my brother at all. It won't affect him at all if one or two of us leave. The villa's guards are like decorations now. Before I went to the hot spring, I even saw my brother take a few guards to play cards. It's called Fight the Landlord. Gu Lu is almost as carefree as my brother when he gave him his annual leave, right? He's even more carefree than his annual leave. During the annual leave, when young master calls him, he has to immediately land and rush back even if he's in the sky. Now that he's living like this, my brother has gained almost 5 kilograms. Don't be surprised when you see him." Yi Huanyan laughed. "Since no one cares about you, don't you plan to come here? Although it's not as carefree as you at the villa, at least there's someone here who misses you. My second brother would be a ghost if he misses me. Second miss, don't joke around." Gu Min obviously didn't care about Song Xiaobo, so Yi Huanyan didn't mention it anymore. She asked directly, "Oh right, why did you call me last night? You hung up after one ring." Chapter 479. Phone Call. Gu Min's voice paused and she looked confused. "Did I call you?" F***ck, Yi Huanyan sighed and muttered, "That's enough. Maybe I pressed the wrong number." Yi Huanyan was a little speechless. "Forget it. You and Song Xiaobo are really a pair. A pair of clowns." "Who? Who's Song Xiaobo?" "You don't even remember who he is, but he offended your second brother because of you. You make it sound like your brother has become the queen mother who separated the cowherd and the weaving girl." "Fairy tale? What is it?" Yi Huanyan sighed deeply. "No one. It's cowherd and weaving girl Gu. If you have time, you should read more books to make up for your childhood. Stop playing with guns." Gu Min spent her childhood playing with guns and shooting with a group of rough old men. When she was a little older, she couldn't control herself. When she was sent to school, she could beat up the entire class of boys. Later on, Gu Lu was afraid that his sister would cause trouble, so he took the initiative to bring her back and teach her himself. She barely managed to teach her how to read, and it was said that Gu Lu was the one who taught her how to read. The call ended in a hurry. The moment she hung up, Yi Huanyan felt that her conversation with Gu Min was always incoherent. It was just like how Gu Min usually talked to the group of men at Four Seasons Villa, never getting to the point. It really made her speechless. Not long after she put down the phone, her secretary knocked on the door and came in. She placed an invitation on her desk. "This is the invitation to the Fengshang charity banquet. President Gu, are you going? If you are, I'll call them back." Yi Huanyan flipped through the invitation. Only her name was written on it. "Is it just for me?" The secretary was slightly stunned. "Yes. Is there a problem?" "Nothing. You can leave." Yi Huanyan frowned. "I'll call them myself. You don't have to worry about it." Ling Han's name was not on the list. Did that mean that Ling Han was not invited to this charity banquet? Ji Xiaoye was not someone who would make such a mistake. She frowned and dialed the number. The busy tone rang for a long time, but no one answered. After that, Her secretary sent her a few clips of the movie trailer for her to look through. She was busy until she got off work, so she temporarily put this matter aside and did not continue to contact Ji Xiaoye. Remaining Life had already reached its final release date. If everything went as planned, it would be a New Year's celebration film, premiering on the first day of the new year. Now, the entire company was working hard to promote this movie. After all, there were many movies released at the same time, so it was not easy to break through and achieve good results. Before she got off work, Gu Qi came in with a tablet to report on her recent activities. Have you decided to go to the charity banquet? Yes. Yi Huanyan nodded. Then, have you decided on a male partner? Gu Qi asked. Of course. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. She suddenly realized why Ji Xiaoye had only given her one invitation. The Fengshang charity banquet was a large-scale banquet that gathered all the handsome men and beautiful women in the industry. Whether it was the connections that the businessmen wanted or the entertainment artists wanted, there were countless opportunities for them to show their faces. This was a great way to improve themselves. But some people might not want to go. Ling Han's right leg had not fully recovered, so he had to rely on crutches to walk every day. In this state, he might not want to attend an event like this with her and be judged by others. Yi Huanyan frowned. I'll tell you about the male partner tomorrow. Is it urgent? It's not urgent. Gu Qi looked indifferent. If you don't want to, you can attend with Su Nianhua. After all, he's the male lead of the movie, so it's convenient for you to promote it. Let's talk about it tomorrow. Yes, okay. Gu Qi didn't even have a question. He probably knew what Yi Huanyan was thinking. There's a variety show at Lanjiang TV station the day after tomorrow. There's a weekend appointment with you and the main production team of Remaining Life. Since there's nothing else on that day, I'll agree on your behalf. Yes. I'll leave it to you. Yi Huanyan was a little distracted. That's all for now. When the time comes, I'll inform you in advance before each event. Oh yeah, you can stay upstairs tonight. I'm going to arrange for Song Xiaobo to stay at a nearby hotel. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. She snapped back to her senses. Huh? Hotel? He agreed. Yes, he agreed. Yi Huanyan's lips twitched. You brought up Gu Min? No, he thinks that I'm ordering him to do something as Gu Min's brother. It's just his own imagination. Gu Qi looked serious. This piqued Yi Huanyan's interest. What do you think of Song Xiaobo? Gu Qi frowned. Nothing much. So you don't agree with his relationship with Minmin? It's not that I don't agree, but someone like him won't be able to get Minmin. Yi Huanyan nodded and raised her hand to give him a thumbs up. You're good. Gu Qi always hit the nail on the head. His rationality, EQ, and logic were all full marks. A programmer with a one-track mind like Song Xiaobo would only have a negative fate in front of Gu Qi. That night, Yi Huanyan watched the edited trailer overnight. There were many parts that she was not satisfied with, so the entire post-production department edited it overnight. In the end, Yi Huanyan simply moved to the post-production department and watched them edit frame by frame. If there was anything that she was not satisfied with, she would point it out on the spot. By the time the edited trailer was ready, it was already dawn. Yi Huanyan picked up the coffee cup and took a sip, but did not drink anything. Only then did she realize that the cup was empty. Is this version okay, Mr. Gu? President Gu? The editor turned to look at Yi Huanyan. Let's do this version. Send it out for publicity. Thank you for your hard work. Everyone can rest now. The people in the editing department got up in twos and threes, yawned and stretched. They packed up and got ready to go home to accompany their wives and children. Soon, only Yi Huanyan was left. After returning to the office, she repeatedly watched the edited trailer many times until the sun rose outside. The morning light shone in through the curtains. Yi Huanyan yawned. After the effect of the coffee wore off, she finally felt a little sleepy. Suddenly, her cell phone rang and a text message popped up. It was from Ling Han. It's dawn outside. The sunrise is beautiful. Good morning. Yi Huanyan stared at her cell phone for a while. Out of the corner of her eye, she glanced at the invitation card on the corner of the table. She unlocked her cell phone, opened the contact list, and dialed the number. Xiaoyu, it's me. A confused voice came from the other end of the line. I know it's you. Oh my God, it's only 5:30. What are you doing? You haven't sent the invitation card to Ling Han yet, right? You only sent me one, right? Invitation card? What invitation card? The charity banquet. Are you stupid? I sent it. The sound of someone turning over came from the other end of the line. Yesterday afternoon, you had someone send it directly to the old mansion. No, you specifically called me because of this. How worried are you about Ling Han? Chapter 480. You gave it to me? Yi Huanyan exclaimed in surprise. Of course, Ji Xiaoye said impatiently. Of course I gave it to you. I had to give it to you because of our friendship. Otherwise, do you want me to make the headlines? I had such a good relationship with Pleasure Group before, but now that something has happened, I'm not involved. What kind of person am I? Fine, I'm just reminding you. Since you've given it to me, then forget it. Go to sleep. Before Ji Xiaoye could say anything, she quickly hung up the phone. Ji Xiaoye hadn't considered the fact that she had been worried about Ling Han's self-esteem because of his inconvenience all day. Regarding the banquet, what did Ling Han think about it? Yi Huanyan clutched her cell phone, and there was a worried look on her face. Since Ji Xiaoye gave him the invitation, he didn't take the initiative to tell her. Maybe he didn't want to go? Yi Huanyan guessed, but she couldn't be sure. Ling Han was a man with very strong self-esteem, and no one knew this better than her. However, he had always been proud and aloof, looking down on all living things. He had never been defeated before, and had never been in a difficult situation before. Thus, when he was in this kind of situation, she was even more at a loss than him. It was as if she had been used to his image as an omnipotent and powerful man for so many years. When he suddenly fell from the high platform, she was the first to feel uneasy. The next day, Yi Huanyan slept in the cubicle in the office until she woke up at noon. Gu Qi reported the response of the movie trailer in a document and put it on her desk. When he saw her coming out of the room, he looked up and greeted her. Did you sleep well? Why didn't you go upstairs to sleep? Yi Huanyan waved her hand and yawned. It's the same. This is the bed, and so is the bed upstairs. There's not much difference. Anyway, I have to get up, so I can use work as an excuse to walk less. Gu Qi's eyebrows trembled, and he pretended to be calm. After the movie release is over, you can rest for a while. Leave the road show to your subordinates. Yi Huanyan nodded and rubbed her temples. She pointed at the 2 blue lunchboxes on the coffee table and asked, What are those? Gu Qi's eyes followed her movements and fell on the lunchboxes. He hesitated for a few seconds. Mr. Ling sent lunch here half an hour ago. You didn't wake up, so he didn't ask the secretary to wake you up. Ling Han came. Yi Huanyan's eyes lit up and she was suddenly not sleepy anymore. She completely ignored Gu Qi's explanation and asked excitedly, Why didn't he wait for me here? Why didn't anyone wake me up? Gu Qi looked at her and added, He said he was going to the import store to buy fruit for you, so he left in a hurry. Yi Huanyan nodded and muttered, My mother is so troublesome. There were 3 layers to Ling Han's insulated container. The top layer was braised pork, the second layer was stir-fried cabbage with oil residue, the third layer was white rice, and the last insulated container was filled with fish soup. It didn't taste like Aunt Zhang's cooking. She didn't know who made it. The fish soup wasn't hot enough, but it tasted okay. Yi Huanyan smacked her lips and looked up at Gu Qi. Have you eaten? Yes. Gu Qi nodded. About the male companion at the charity banquet, if you're not in a hurry, let's wait. Su Nianhua should have received the invitation alone, so he will be there without you informing him. So, when the time comes, I can appear in the name of the crew or with someone else. It was still early and there was still a week before the Fengshang charity banquet. She didn't want to take the initiative to mention this to Ling Han. She thought that if he wanted to go, he would probably mention it to her himself. Gu Qi understood what she meant and nodded. He didn't have any other opinions. He watched her eat and reported the promotion of the movie. Then, he mentioned the news from the Gu Corporation. If nothing goes wrong, the Gu Corporation will be able to temporarily remove the seizure and re-enter the market in 2 days. It's just that the Gu Corporation has suffered a heavy loss this time, so it's impossible to seek justice from the prosecutor's office. They can only admit that they're unlucky. It's already very lucky to have escaped death. How is the He family now? At the mention of the He family, a trace of contempt appeared in Gu Qi's eyes. If He Xiao hadn't been desperate enough to bribe Smith, we wouldn't have been able to get through this safely so easily. He is the United Nations charity ambassador, so his words have a lot of credibility. This time, he shot himself in the foot. He has spent all the credibility he has accumulated over half of his life. My father hasn't met with him yet, right? So wants to meet with him, but He Xiao is now locked up in the prosecutor's office. So can't even take care of himself, so young master stopped him. At this time, it's better not to bump into the teeth of the storm. Hearing this, Yi Huanyan nodded. That's true. Let's talk about it when the matter is completely settled. After all, because of such a ridiculous thing as the Gu Corporation being involved in a smuggling case, it was completely because Gu Duo was forced into a corner. Coincidentally, she met with He Xiao, a person who had been suppressing his evil intentions for many years, who wanted to exterminate the Gu family. Therefore, the two of them worked together and did such a shameless thing. First, they kidnapped Ling Han and delayed his return to China. Then, they tampered with the internal affairs of pleasure and hooked up with the one father and son, who had long coveted the position of CEO. Later, they kidnapped Gu Xinian and forced Ling Han to sign the equity transfer agreement. The equity transfer agreement probably had nothing to do with Gu Duo's plan. It was just a condition of exchange with the one father and son. He Xiao's purpose was to ruin Gu Heng's reputation and the business empire he had worked so hard to build over the years. He would leave him with nothing and conveniently swallow up the Gu Corporation. He would use this to prove to Wan Yi that she had chosen the wrong person. Gu Duo's purpose was much simpler. She only wanted Gu Xinian. In Yi Huanyan's eyes, this plan was full of loopholes. If it had been Gu Duo alone, it would have been impossible to accomplish. However, He Xiao was very capable and made connections with the higher-ups. He threw the blame on Gu Ming for no reason and allowed him to enter the prosecutor's office. If they had followed their original plan and things continued to develop like this, the wrongful case might have been wrongly judged in the end. However, the people they kidnapped successfully escaped one after another and turned the situation around. The biggest loophole should be that He Xiao let his own son eavesdrop on the night before the villa was sealed off. Thinking of this, Yi Huanyan looked up and asked, "By the way, how is Xiaochuan?" After the incident at Manhattan Beach, He Xiaochuan had not contacted her again. I heard that after He Xiao was detained by the prosecutor's office, he asked for a meeting, but He Xiao refused. He Xiao should know that He Xiao did these things behind his back, so the relationship between them is very stiff now. Hearing this, Yi Huanyan's expression became complicated. Chapter 481. Alright, about the variety show, A Weekend Date. The publicity department thinks that it's a good idea to bring a newcomer to the show. If Chen Yin isn't busy, you can bring her to the show to increase her exposure. She hasn't appeared in front of the public for a long time. It's not an exaggeration to say that she's been shelved. Gu Qi's words pulled Yi Huanyan back to reality. She nodded. Okay, I'll ask her tonight. Chen Yin was in Haiyan Media in name, but her activities were not restricted by the company. Ever since she signed the contract, she had been following Yi Huanyan around. Originally, the company had planned for her and she had gotten the second female lead in a web drama. However, 2 months ago, for some reason, she refused to work no matter what, saying that she wanted to nurse her body and mind. Yi Huanyan could more or less tell that it was a relationship problem. After several interactions with Chu Tianqua, Yi Huanyan felt that the man was like a child who never grew up. Dating Chen Yin was like playing house. He didn't even know what the future would be like. He only knew how to play around every day. However, no matter how playful Chen Yin was, she was a woman after all. When a woman reached a certain age, she would start to yearn for stability. "You're not staying in the company tonight?" Gu Qi asked. "A friend is coming back, so I'm welcoming him." Yi Huanyan's eyes had a hint of meaning. At Lanjiang City International Airport, night had just fallen. The flight from the United States had just landed in the airport hall. A woman wearing a caramel-colored trendy woolen coat pulled a silver-gray suitcase out of the exit. Her 10-centimeter tall boots set off her tall and straight figure. Under the huge sunglasses was a delicate and classical face. She turned on her phone as she walked and asked, "Actually, you didn't have to go through so much trouble to pick me up. I can just take a taxi myself. There aren't many taxis here at night, but you're unlucky. It's rush hour and I'm stuck on the road. You can take a look first. If you can take a taxi, you can take one first." "Sure, I can do anything." "Hey, wait a minute." The voice on the other end of the phone sounded a little anxious. "It's okay to share a car with someone. There are very few cars going to the suburbs over there. If the driver says to share a car to the suburbs, you have to quickly get in the car." Fu Yingxiang answered helplessly. She hung up the phone and pulled her suitcase to the taxi stand. Just as Yi Huanyan had said, the people who had just gotten off the plane were all queuing up. Those who were lucky had arrived early and had already left by taxis. There were only a few taxis behind them. Every time a taxi came to the front, the driver would shout for it. "Are we going to the city center? There are 3 of us." Fu Yingxiang looked at the endless line of people in front of her. She took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. If he had known earlier, he would have arranged for someone to pick him up at the airport. Gambling was banned in the country and the Fu family's main business was running casinos. They did not have any business in the country, so it was not very convenient for them to do anything here. Just as she was bored out of her mind, she suddenly heard a loud voice shouting, "Near Yongxiang Road in the western suburbs, is anyone carpooling? We're short of 2. Fu Yingxiang was slightly stunned. She remembered Yi Huanyan's reminder over the phone and hurriedly raised her hand. "Here, master." The entrance of the taxi stand was crowded with people. Fu Yingxiang pulled her suitcase and there was a metal fence between her and the taxi. She frowned and lowered her head. Just as she was about to carry her suitcase and climb over, she heard a clear voice. "Let me do it." She raised her head in surprise. The first thing she saw was the hood on the back of the black trench coat. Then she saw half of the man's neck as he bent over. His skin was slightly pale, but he still had the characteristics of an Asian. There was a refreshing smell of detergent on his body and there was a youthful vitality. While she was in a daze, the man had already carried her suitcase and climbed over the metal fence. The man stood on the other side of the fence and looked up at her. He stretched out his hand and smiled. "Do you need help?" When he bent over just now, she didn't look carefully and thought that he was a middle-aged man with such a calm demeanor. Now that he stood up straight, she could see his youthful aura through the metal fence. He looked to be in his early 20s. He was wearing a black down jacket with a dark blue V-neck sweater inside. The collar of his white shirt was exposed. He looked to be more than 185 meters tall. He was young, but he didn't lose his composure. There were the sounds of girls whispering around them. "He's so handsome. The driver is waiting. I'll pull you over, sister." Fu Yingxiang was slightly stunned when she heard him call her sister. She took his hand and felt the strength in his arm the moment they climbed over the fence. Then, he steadily held her shoulders and landed on the ground. It had been many years since she had been so close to a man. This feeling made her feel a little strange. The man first stuffed her luggage into the trunk, then opened the car door and waited at the door like a gentleman. "Thank you." She walked past him and said softly, "You're welcome." Just as he got into the car, his phone rang. Fu Yingxiong looked at the man apologetically. He smiled and took off the earphones around his neck. He waved them at her and then put them on. Fu Yingxiong also had earphones, and the soundproofing was quite good. The call was from Yi Huanyan. They were still stuck on the highway. As soon as the call connected, a hurried voice came from the other end. "Are you in the car?" "I don't know how long the traffic is going to be here. I'm in the car. I'm about to leave. Then if I can get off the highway in front, I'll get off directly. You know where the car is, right?" I know. The person who's carpooling with me is also going that way. It's the same place." "What a coincidence." "Yeah. Didn't I say that there's no traffic in front? It should be a green light." The call was hurriedly hung up. Fu Yingxiong shook her head helplessly and put the phone back on the main screen. She opened the Link Watch app and started to silently delete one by one. She had been using this app to kill time for so many years. The man next to her was not far from her. Winter clothes were worn a lot, and it made people feel safe. The material of her coat at the elbow brushed against the man's down jacket from time to time as she scrolled through the app. The heater in the car was very strong. After a while, the man next to her took off his earphones and took off his down jacket. He folded it at his waist and placed it on his lap. Fu Yingxiong was not hot, but her eyes were a little blurry. She couldn't see anything when she scrolled to the last level. Every time, it would be a countdown of 5 seconds, and she would fail and start over again. It was probably the same this time. She sighed. His slender and clean fingers suddenly blocked the phone and tapped on it twice. With a bayou sound, the two teddy bears on the diagonal line disappeared in a single line. Then, a series of clicks occurred at an even faster speed. He didn't even have time to take a closer look. Within 5 seconds, the colorful animals on the phone screen had completely disappeared. The words, "Congratulations on clearing the game," flashed on the screen, accompanied by the special effects of scattering flowers. Although it was clumsy, it was delightful. Chapter 482. Fu Yingxiong stared blankly at the scene in front of her. She looked up in surprise and saw the man looking at her apologetically. "Sorry, I have a bit of obsessive-compulsive disorder." Fu Yingxiong smiled and put away her phone. "How did you do it? I can't get past the last stage every time." "If you really want to, you can get past it. You're an idealist, aren't you? Sincerity leads to success. Oriental metaphysics." The man blinked and revealed a playful expression. Seeing this expression, Fu Yingxiong felt that this man did indeed look like him. He was a standard young man in his early 20s, youthful and quick-witted. She suddenly felt that she was incompatible with this young man from head to toe. She clenched her fingers and leaned against the back of the chair. She turned her head to look out the window on the other side. The neon lights outside the window were shining brightly, decorating the entire Lonjiang city even more than it was during the day. Fu Yingxiong had seen a lot of the bustling world. She was born in a money-squandering brothel and was used to seeing these luxurious scenes, so she was not fascinated by them. No matter how she thought about it, she was already 40 years old. Thanks to her father, she had lived like a princess until she was in her 30s. In this life, other than the incident 6 years ago, she could be considered to have lived a smooth life. What else was there to hope for? "Do you want to eat candy?" A clear voice suddenly sounded beside her. It was the same voice that one would suddenly hear when standing in front of the iron fence. It caught her off guard, but it was so clean and clear that she could not raise her guard at all. At this moment, the pair of eyes looking at her were like those of a fawn, twinkling like stars. She did not know if it was because of the high temperature of the air conditioner, but Fu Yingxiong felt that this was an inexplicably warm question. She was stunned. Her gaze fell on the lollipop between his slender fingers. "A child gave it to me on the plane. I don't like to eat sweet things. Girls should like it very much." "Girls?" Fu Yingxiong repeated in a surprised tone. The young man paused in his action of holding the lollipop, seemingly hesitant. "You don't like it?" Fu Yingxiang's expression froze. She lowered her head and took the lollipop. No, I like it. Thank you. This young man seemed to have gotten the main point wrong. Fu Yingxiang only felt his old face become a little hot. For a person in his 40s to be called a girl was a little difficult to say, and he also couldn't bear it. Were all children so seductive these days? Just as her thoughts were running wild, the young man suddenly said, "Let me help you peel it." Fu Yingxiang was stunned. She followed his gaze and looked at her hand. She didn't know when the wrapper of the lollipop had been messed up by her. She quickly unwrapped the candy wrapper and said embarrassedly, "No, I can peel it off." The candy wrapper was peeled off, but Fu Yingxiang felt that it was a little strange for a 40-year-old man to eat a lollipop in front of a 20-year-old man. She held the lollipop and stared at it for a few seconds. Just as she was feeling awkward, her phone suddenly rang again. "Hello? Sister 4, where are you?" "I'm at." Fu Yingxiang looked out of the window. "I'm not too sure, this place is Zhongjia Alley." The young man's voice came from beside her. Fu Yingxiang's heart tightened. She thanked him with her eyes. "That's Zhongjia Alley." "Oh, Zhongjia Alley. Hey, you even know this? Isn't this your first time here?" "Hi. Hey. I just heard someone beside you talking." "A man? You're carpooling with a man?" Fu Yingxiang paused for a few seconds and replied, "Yeah." "Then don't hang up. It's too late, and it's not safe. I'll keep talking to you. When we reach the place, I'll wait for you at the entrance." "Okay." She couldn't wait for Yi Huanyan to keep talking to her. It was indeed a little difficult for her to stuff the lollipop into her mouth. The phone call was a very good excuse. The old mansion is a little remote, but don't worry, the facilities are pretty good, and the heating is good too. Ling Han told me before that they just changed the floor heating 3 years ago, so it's very warm. I remember that you're afraid of the cold. Yi Huanyan's nagging came from the other end of the phone. Fu Yingxiang knew that she was someone who wasn't used to awkward silences. She always hoped that there would be some movement in her environment, so she could understand why she was rambling. "Yeah, Lanjiang is colder than Los Angeles, but fortunately, I got on the bus after leaving the airport, so I didn't feel anything." Yi Huanyan went directly to the suburbs after getting off the highway. The distance between the airport and the suburbs was a little further, so after she passed the rush-hour traffic jam, she arrived at the old mansion before Fu Yingxiang. After parking the car, she didn't knock on the door. She stood at the door and stomped her feet, blowing cold air into the phone. "I think it's going to snow." "Really?" Fu Yingxiang looked out of the window. "I brought thick clothes. I won't be here for long, so it shouldn't be too cold. Put on your gloves before you get off the car. You took a long time to heal your hands. You're going to freeze them." "It's just a pair of hands. Why are they so fragile? How can they freeze just like that?" Fu Yingxiang laughed. 6 years ago, when she was in the 4th prison, she had to wash clothes in the winter, and her hands were full of frostbite. After that, Gu Xinian sent someone to pick her up for a long time and used countless expensive hand care products to treat her hands. "Where are you? Where are we?" Fu Yingxiang had already turned to look at the young man beside her. Bluestone Alley. The young man glanced out of the window. "I'm almost there. The man beside you is quite familiar with this place." Yi Huanyan obviously heard his voice. "Anyway, he's more familiar with this place than me. Wait for me at the door." "Yes, I'm here." "Hey, I think I saw your car." Fu Yingxiang raised her head and looked out of the windshield. The young man's clear voice sounded beside her. "I'm almost there. Here, take this." She was stunned and turned to look at him. A pair of beautiful thin hands were holding a pair of black cashmere gloves. He placed it beside her. "I just bought it before I boarded the plane. I haven't used it yet, so don't worry about it." Before she could respond, the young man put on his down jacket and said to the driver in a muffled voice, "Driver, just stop by the roadside. I'm here." Yi Huanyan's voice came from the phone. "Hey, Sister 4, Did you stop by the roadside? Fu Yingxiong snapped back to her senses and replied blankly, Yes, yes. Get out of the car. As soon as he finished speaking, the call was hung up. Fu Yingxiong stared at the gloves beside her for a few seconds. She was still holding the lollipop in one hand. The young man had already gotten out of the car and the cold wind blew in. She shivered and quickly put the lollipop in her mouth. Then she put on the gloves and took the lollipop out of her mouth through the gloves. Her other hand was busy reaching for her wallet. Driver, I'm getting out of the car here too. Oh, okay. 150 yuan in total. Here, keep the change. Chapter 483. Fu Yingxiong got out of the car. The young man was busy moving the luggage in the trunk and didn't seem to notice her. Sister 4. A cry of surprise came from the night sky. A black figure jumped over from afar and laughed. Sister 4, it's snowing. It's snowing. Did you see? Fu Yingxiong sniffed and turned to look at Yi Huanyan. Many people liked snow. A heavy snow seemed to be able to cleanse the entire world. Yi Huanyan looked at her with both hands holding the snow. She was smiling when her smile suddenly turned into astonishment. She fell behind her in a daze. Sister Yan Yan, long time no see. Fu Yingxiong had heard this clear voice more than once along the way. She was sure that it was that young man. Sister Yan Yan. They knew each other? Yi Huanyan stared at the young man behind Fu Yingxiong with wide eyes. After a long time, she finally recognized him. Ling Zhan? He hadn't seen Ling Zhan for a long time. It had been almost 7 years. He came back once when old Madam died of illness. That was also the last time they saw each other. Ling Zhan had changed a lot. He was taller and more muscular. He was a man, not a boy. Yi Huanyan was overjoyed and introduced him to Fu Yingxiong. This is Ling Zhan, the eldest son of Ling Han's second uncle. Why did you come in the same car? As she spoke, Yi Huanyan looked suspiciously at the lollipop in Fu Yingxiong's hand. Fu Yingxiong returned to her senses and hurriedly hid the lollipop behind her back. It's a coincidence. I'm not sure what's going on either. Ling Zhan smiled. It's really a coincidence. Let's go in. We'll talk inside. Yi Huanyan hurried forward to help with the luggage. Fu Yingxiong held the lollipop in one hand. She didn't know whether to throw it away or keep it. She felt extremely awkward and could only let Ling Zhan and Yi Huanyan help to pull the luggage into the house. The old house was a big house, and everyone lived in the backyard. Yi Huanyan obviously didn't know that Ling Zhan was coming back. As soon as she entered the backyard, she shouted, Ling Han, look who's here. A groan came from the room, followed by Wen Yi's displeased scolding. I told you not to move. You're the one who's suffering. Yi Huanyan stepped into the room, and the warm air hit her face. Ling Han was lying on the chaise lounge in the side hall. One of his trousers was rolled up high, and there were needles everywhere. Mom, what are you doing? I just learned some acupuncture. Let him try it. New acupuncture? Yi Huanyan's mouth twitched. For a moment, she forgot her purpose and hurried forward. How dare you experiment on a living person when you just learned it? Wen Yi glanced at her with a careless expression. He was doing well at first, but when you came in so suddenly, he moved and just pricked the wrong acupoint. He probably won't be able to move for the next 2 days. Mom! Yan, Ling Han's voice interrupted Yi Huanyan's dissatisfaction. What were you talking to me about? Hearing this, Yi Huanyan finally remembered the 2 people standing outside the door. She hurriedly lifted the curtain and waved. Come in quickly. The first to enter was Fu Yingxiong. Wen Yi was very happy to see Fu Yingxiong. She hurriedly got up and greeted her. Xiaoying, it's good that you're here. I've been looking forward to seeing you here. Stay with me for a few more days. None of these little brats are willing to accompany an old woman like me. Following closely behind was Ling Zhan. When Ling Han saw Ling Zhan, his expression froze and his brows furrowed. He couldn't tell whether he was happy or unhappy. Ling Zhan raised her eyebrows and tilted her head to look at Ling Han, who was sprawled on the chaise lounge, unable to move. "Cousin, you don't seem to be very happy to see me." Ling Han's brows furrowed even deeper. He didn't know if there was really something wrong with the acupoint that Wen Yi had pierced for him. After a long time, half of his body gradually became numb. At this moment, he couldn't move. He couldn't help but want to show a little enthusiasm. "Don't blame him," Wen Yi interrupted. "He wants to, but he can't get up." It was rare for Wen Yi to speak up for Ling Han. Yi Huanyan looked at her in surprise. "Who is this?" "My mother." "Hello, Auntie." You're Ling Han's cousin? You're Mr. Ling Dongyu's son, right?" Wan Yi pulled Fu Yingxiang to sit at the tea table and turned to greet Ling Zhan. She looked like the hostess, as if she had forgotten that in this place, Ling Zhan was actually more of a host. "I haven't had the chance to express my gratitude to your father in person for helping us when he was abroad. I'm really grateful to your father for helping Gu Corporation clear its name." Even her words of gratitude were said in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. Yi Huanyan held her forehead. She felt that in this world, there might not be a more unreasonable woman than her own mother. Ling Zhan's expression didn't change. She said lightly, "My father didn't do much. Auntie, you don't have to take it to heart. If there's anything else you need help with, just tell me. It's more convenient for me to tell my father directly." "Is that so?" "Of course. My father asked me to come back to the country to see if there's anything I can help with. After all, when Sister Yan Yan was in the Ling family, she had a good relationship with my family. We don't see each other many times a year, but we get along very well. Especially my mother and sister Yan Yan, they get along very well. I heard Yan Yan mention this before. Your mother is Chris, right?" Seeing that Ling Zhan and Wan Yi were chatting happily, and Fu Yingxiang was accompanying them, they talked about some coincidences that happened at the airport. The three of them chatted happily. Yi Huanyan was not in the mood to interrupt. She simply walked to Ling Han's side. "Ling Zhan is here. I haven't seen you in years, but you've become more and more likable." Ling Han was lying on the chaise lounge, so his vision was limited. He could not see how happy the three of them were, but from the content of their conversation, he sensed a hint of danger. "Yan Yan, help me pull out the needle and thread on my leg. Can this be pulled out?" "Yes." Ling Han nodded. Yi Huanyan turned around and looked at Wan Yi. "Mom, can these needles be pulled out?" "Yes," Wan Yi replied perfunctorily. She did not even raise her head. Yi Huanyan reached out to pull out the needle. Before she could touch it, she heard Wan Yi say, "Unless you want his other leg to be paralyzed as well." She was so frightened that her hand trembled and she almost dropped the needle. "It's better not to pull it out." Yi Huanyan carefully retracted her hand and comforted her. "My mom used to study Chinese medicine. Although she may be using you as a test subject, I can't make trouble for her." Ling Han frowned. He glanced at Ling Zhan's back from the corner of his eye and faintly felt uneasy. This rascal had some thoughts about Yi Huanyan since he was young. At that time, he was still a little kitten and could not do anything about it. Now that Ling Zhan had come back to help the Gu Corporation, he did not know whether he wanted to take advantage of the situation or to take advantage of it. In the evening, Yi Huanyan had just sent Ling Han back to his room. The two of them had just spoken a few words when Wen Yi knocked on the door. "Yan Yan, Xiao Ying is sleeping in your room. Come over early and talk to her." Since returning to the Gu mansion, Yi Huanyan and Ling Han had been sleeping in separate rooms. Wan Yi had come up with a bunch of folk remedies that could help treat Ling Han's leg. One of them was for the couple to sleep in separate rooms. Chapter 484. Whether Wan Yi's treatment method had any scientific basis was still debatable. Yi Huanyan had originally planned to ignore her and let her do whatever she wanted. However, on the night of the treatment, just as they entered the room, Wan Yi knocked on the door. I've prepared a room for you. It's right next to yours and mine." After that, it was endless treatment and separation. It's said that when it comes to marriage, it's the father who can't bear to part with his daughter. Why is my family's responsibility all on my mother? Yi Huanyan frowned and turned to look at Ling Han. Do you think my mother will rush in if I ignore her like this? She won't. Ling Han shook his head. But it's very likely that your mother will prick me until I can't get up during tomorrow's acupuncture session. Yi Huanyan's mouth twitched. She sighed and got off the bed. Then forget it. For the sake of the future, bear with it. Ling Han smiled. He leaned against the bed and held her hand. He pulled her to his chest and planted a gentle kiss on her forehead. Everything will be fine. Yi Huanyan nodded. Yes, everything will be fine. When Yi Huanyan left the room, she saw Wen Yi walking past her with a bamboo basket in her hand. What's this? Don't move. Wen Yi slapped her hand away. It's biting you. It's biting. Yi Huanyan exclaimed. Mom, what are you doing? It's late. Go to bed. Yi Huanyan wanted to follow her in, but Wen Yi had already closed the door. She pushed, but to no avail. The door was locked from the inside. Not long after, a muffled groan came from inside. Yi Huanyan shouted anxiously, Ling Han, are you okay? She was met with silence in the room. She quickly knocked on the door. Finally, Ling Han's voice came from inside the room. I'm fine. It didn't sound like he was fine. Yi Huanyan was about to continue pounding on the door when she was interrupted by a voice behind her. Sister Yen Yen. When he turned around, he saw Ling Zhan standing behind him. She was wearing a thick nightgown, but in this snowy weather, she still looked thin standing in the corridor. Oh my God, aren't you afraid of catching a cold by running out like this? Yi Huanyan urged him. Hurry up and go inside. I'm not cold. I feel cold just by looking at you. Yi Huanyan pushed him and looked back at the door with some hesitation. In the end, she gritted her teeth, steeled her heart, and pushed Ling Zhan into the opposite room. Sister Yen Yen, have a seat. I'll get you a cup of hot chocolate. There weren't any bottles or jars in this room, so it was obvious that they were brought in by Ling Zhan's personal luggage. Yi Huanyan looked around and saw a small microwave heater. She asked curiously, You only brought a box with these coffee machines in it. Where's your luggage? My luggage was sent back. It should arrive tomorrow. This time, there were a lot of things, so I couldn't bring them back myself. Ling Zhan's back was facing Yi Huanyan as she busied herself in front of the heater. The smell of hot chocolate wafted through the room. How long do you plan to stay this time? Will your dad and the others come back for the new year? And Ling Li and Ling Shui? I haven't seen them in a long time. I plan to tidy up West Court. Ling Zhan's back paused slightly. She asked hesitantly, Do you think it'll be faster to get a few people to help tidy up? West Court. Yi Huanyan was stunned. Aren't you used to living here? West Court has been abandoned for a long time. It's pretty good here. It's just that it's a little troublesome to stay here for a long time. Why would it be troublesome? Yi Huanyan smiled nonchalantly. It's pretty good to eat and chat together. Do you think it's troublesome to have an extra pair of chopsticks? I plan to come back and stay for a long time, Ling Zhan suddenly interrupted Yi Huanyan. Stay for a long time? I don't plan to leave. What do you mean? There's an academic conference in China. After attending it, I'll decide whether to stay in China to do research. If I want to do research, it'll take a long time. So you're saying that from now on, you'll be living in West Court? Yi Huanyan finally reacted. Ling Zhan turned around and looked at Yi Huanyan seriously. Sister Yen Yen, don't you want me to come back? Yi Huanyan's expression froze. No, that's not what I meant. Of course it's good that you're back. I'm just thinking that West Court is so big that it'll take a lot of effort to tidy it up. I don't feel safe letting the housekeeping company outside do the cleaning. Many of the things in there are antiques. If one of them breaks, it'll be a disservice to the ancestors. That's why I'm worried. Ling Zhan suddenly breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. It's fine. I'm going to put the antiques in the storage room tomorrow. In the future, I'll just decorate the place with normal things. Okay. My fourth sister should be able to help tomorrow. Yi Huanyan smiled. I heard that she majored in the study of treasures in university. She's very knowledgeable about how to collect these things. Fourth sister. Ling Zhan hesitated for a few seconds. Ah, it's Sister Yingxiang. Why do you call her fourth sister? Well, we were the ones who were monitoring. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned and suddenly stopped talking. After a while, she said, "It's just a group of close sisters calling each other that. It's nothing." Ling Han didn't ask any more questions. He sprinkled crushed peanuts on top of the chocolate and brought it to Yi Huanyan. The chocolate is ready. Try it. Yi Huanyan sniffed. It smells good. Ling Han sat across from the coffee table and drank water. The dense steam blurred his vision, but he could clearly see Yi Huanyan's previous appearance through the blurriness. By the way, I haven't asked you yet. How did you recognize me at a glance at the door? I'm not the same as before. You're the same as before. Ling Zhan's answer was unexpected. Yi Huanyan put down the chocolate cup and raised her eyebrows. Are you trying to fool me again? Ling Han didn't recognize me the first time we met. I'm different from him. Ling Zhan lowered his head and hid his gaze. He said lightly, some people should be recognized at a glance, no matter what they look like. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. At this time, a certain someone who was enduring great suffering had cold sweat on his face. He looked up at the ceiling and clenched the sheets under him. Blue veins popped out on his forehead as he tried to suppress the muffled groan coming out of his mouth. If it's really painful, you can't shout. Wen Yi sat at the side, quietly looking at the masterpiece on his legs. A blue and white python was coiling around the base of Ling Han's thighs, sticking out its red tongue as it contracted its body with all its might, as if it wanted to crush him. Because if you shout, Yen Yen will definitely come in. If she sees me treating you like this, she won't agree to continue. Your last 1% of hope will be gone. I know. He panted heavily and tried to stay calm as he responded to Wen Yi. You're quite brave. You can still talk in this situation. Wen Yi looked at him with appreciation. Chapter 485. The next day, when Yi Huanyan woke up and saw the snow outside the window, she exclaimed excitedly and jumped out of bed. Fu Yingxiang shivered and shrunk under the blankets. She said in a muffled voice, Yen Yen, please be considerate of the elderly. I can't stand you tormenting me like this. I'm sorry, Sister 4. Yi Huanyan hurriedly tucked her in and smiled. I'm going out to build a snowman. Do you want to come? No. In the past, whenever it snowed during the Lunar New Year, Ling Zhan and I would go out to build a snowman. Before Fu Yingxiang could say no, she was interrupted by Yi Huanyan. When she heard the two words Ling Zhan, her heart clenched for no reason. She hesitated for a moment, then unexpectedly nodded her head. Then let's go. Put on more clothes. I'm going out first. Yi Huanyan put on her clothes very quickly. After putting on the down jacket and snow boots, she practically rushed out. She was so happy that it was as if she had returned to 10 years ago. In the courtyard outside was a snowman that was about to take shape. Ling Zhan was wearing a black down jacket and half squatting in the snow. He was adding snow to the snowman's body and wearing his headphones. He was so engrossed in music that he did not notice what was happening in the courtyard behind him. Yi Huanyan quietly walked behind him. She held a tightly clenched snowball in her hand. She pulled the collar of the snowman's neck and threw it in. Ah! A scream rang out in the courtyard. Yi Huanyan had already jumped out a few steps while laughing. The screams and laughter were enough to wake up all the people living in the yard. Gu Ming opened the door, squatted down with a teacup, and looked at Yi Huanyan with a smile. You should ask your brother to join in the snowball fight. Yi Huanyan stepped back. Ling Zhan was still shaking off the snowball on his back. He looked embarrassed and said unhappily, "Sister Yan Yan, I used to help you in the snowball fight. You're betraying me now." Yi Huanyan smiled as he stepped back. "It's not a betrayal. It's just that we're the only ones in this courtyard who can fight. That's why we're on different sides." "You said it yourself." Ling Zhan squatted down. He lifted the snowball that was originally a snowman's head and ran towards Yi Huanyan. "Ah!" Yi Huanyan cried out in alarm. In a moment of desperation, he grabbed Fu Yingxiang and used her as a shield. He dodged left and right behind her. Ling Zhan was too embarrassed to play around with Fu Yingxiang. He attacked left and right several times, but failed. Just as he was in a daze, a hand suddenly slapped the snowball that he was holding in the air towards his own face. Ba ba ba! The big snowball was cold to the touch. His face was almost numb from the cold. Ling Zhan stared blankly at Fu Yingxiang's hand, which was still in front of him. He looked at her astonished face and the pale explanation that came out of her mouth. "That's a conditioned reflex." Yi Huanyan was stunned for a few seconds. The moment Ling Zhan caught the big snowball and threw it at him, he jumped away in alarm. "Oh my God! What are you doing? Fourth sister hit you. Why are you chasing after me? Sister Yan Yan, this is your fault. If you hadn't dodged..." "How could I not dodge when you hit me? Little Ling Zhan, if you continue like this, I won't hold back anymore." "You don't have to hold back, Sister Yan Yan." The courtyard was filled with flying snowballs and laughter. Fu Yingxiang put her hands, which were red from the cold, into her pockets. She leaned against the door frame and watched the two people chasing each other in the courtyard. Suddenly, the corners of her mouth turned up, revealing a warm smile. Later, Gu Xinian and Ji Xiaoye also got up. The couple also split into two groups. Gu Xinian helped Ling Zhan, while Ji Xiaoye helped Yi Huanyan. The two of them played a snowball fight for a while. "This won't do. We're at a disadvantage." Yi Huanyan spat out the snowball in his mouth. He found a rockery and squatted behind it. He shouted unhappily, "Brother, can you wear a hat? Your hair is too similar to snow." "We're at a disadvantage." Gu Xinian of course ignored him. He even confidently replied, "You can dye your hair. Don't bother with him. Your brother is just shameless." Ji Xiaoye rolled her eyes. Suddenly, she slapped her thigh. "Just you wait." After saying that, she strolled away along the wall, leaving Yi Huanyan alone behind the rockery. He didn't dare to come out to court death, but he felt terrible squatting there until his feet went numb. 5 minutes later, Ji Xiaoye ran back with Chen Yin. The moment Yi Huanyan saw Chen Yin, he knew that they were going to turn the tide of the battle this morning. Chen Yin was quite agile. The moment she joined the battle, she threw 3 large snowballs at the enemy's neckline. The cold caused the enemy to scream in fear. "It's useless no matter how stealthy we are. We're cheating." Ji Xiaoye laughed as she sent snowballs to Chen Yin. She didn't expect a snowball to fly straight at her and hit her in the mouth. "Gu Xinian, your grandpa. My grandpa is also your grandpa now. F*CKU. I'm going to fight it out with you." The battle ended with Ji Xiaoye pouncing on the enemy's main force in the snow and giving them a good beating. Yi Huanyan's face was red from the cold. He smiled as he looked around the messy courtyard. When he glanced at the room opposite, he paused for a moment. Ling Han was standing at the window. He opened a small gap and was looking at them. Many years ago, although he was a serious person, he would still come out and participate in the snowball fights in the courtyard. It was because of his legs. Yi Huanyan frowned. He paused in his steps and didn't go over in the end. "You're all up. Let's go to the main hall for breakfast." Aunt Zhang's voice ended the snowball fight in the morning. Yi Huanyan sniffed. "I'm not eating. I won't be able to make it in time for work. I'll change and leave." "All right." She turned around and grabbed Chen Yin. "If you don't have anything to do, come with me to the show tonight. You haven't appeared in public for a long time. Even if you signed with the company because of nepotism, you can't do this. Chen Yin knew that she was in the wrong. She had a guilty look on her face. She knew that she couldn't avoid it now, so she nodded and said, "Okay, I'll go. If you dare to stand me up, I'll teach you a lesson." "I said I'll go. Sister Yen Yen, I'll definitely go." Chen Yin lowered her head and kicked at the snow with her sneakers. She muttered, "Anyway, I won't see that bastard on the show." "Bastard?" Yi Huanyan glanced at her and held the door. "You've been calling Chu Tianhua a bastard for 2 months. If you can't let it go, you can't. What's there to be reserved about? Hey, where are you going? Change and get in the car with me. We'll go straight to the company." "Coming." With her back to Yi Huanyan, Chen Yin waved her hand as she walked and said confidently, "You can change first." "I'll change too." While the two of them were talking, Auntie Zhang had just brought in the food box from the opposite room. She looked worriedly at Ling Han, who was standing by the window, and said, "Madame Gu said that you won't be leaving the house for a period of time. Is that true?" Chapter 486. Ling Han nodded slightly, his expression calm. "Yes, Aunt Gu asked me to stay in the room. The temperature has dropped during this period of time, and it's too cold outside. It's not good for treatment." Aunt Zhang looked worried. "Is Madame Gu's acupuncture treatment really effective? I keep feeling that young master's complexion is getting worse after such a long period of treatment." Ling Han retracted his gaze from the window and did not say a word. He did not know if it was effective or not. He was not even sure if Yi Huanyan's mother really knew acupuncture treatment. At this point, there was not much he could do. It was rare for her to have good intentions, so he just had to accept it. There was an invitation on the desk. Ji Xiaoye had asked someone to deliver it 2 days ago. When it was delivered, it came with a sentence. "It's my business whether to send the invitation or not, but it's your business whether you want to accompany Yen Yen to the banquet. The choice is yours." The sound of the door opening came from the courtyard. "Xiao Wu, have you changed your clothes? Let's go, I'm going to be late for work." Chan Yin ran out in a hurry. "What's the rush, sister? You're a big boss. It's fine if you're late. Who dares to say anything?" The sound of footsteps at the door was getting closer and closer. The sound of knocking on the glass pulled Ling Han back from his thoughts. "Han, I'm leaving." It was Yi Huanyan's voice. Ling Han responded, "Okay, be careful on the road." The sound of footsteps at the door gradually faded away, and when Yi's voice came from outside. "Yen Yen, who are you going to Xiao Yu's magazine banquet with in 2 days? Do you need a male companion?" "Oh, let's talk about that later. I think Ling Zhan is fine. If there's no one, let him accompany you. I'm going to be late for work. Mom, I'm leaving first." Ling Han's eyes tightened a little. He stared blankly out the window and clenched his fingers. The sound of a car starting came from the outside of the old house. Then, Wen Yi pushed open the door, and a cold wind blew in. Aunt Zhang glanced at Ling Han and left the room. "Come on, let's start today's acupuncture." Wen Yi rolled up her sleeves with a calm expression. "Aunt Gu, is your acupuncture really effective? You suspect me?" "Auntie, that's not what I meant." Ling Han frowned. "I just want to know how long it will take. The shortest would be 3 to 5 years, and the fastest would be half a year. You have to know that Chinese medicine has always been effective, but the effect is slow." "But I can't wait that long." Wan Yi was fiddling with the acupuncture box when she heard his words. She glanced at him with a knowing look and sneered. "What? Why are you in such a hurry? The company is gone, so there's nothing for you to do, right? Yen Yen is waiting for me to attend Feng Shang's charity banquet with her." "How do you know that Yen Yen is waiting for you?" Wen Yi's face was full of contempt. "He's just a male companion. It doesn't matter who she goes with. I think your cousin Ah Zhan is quite good." Ling Han's face tightened, but he didn't say a word. Actually, it's not like there's no way. Ling Han abruptly raised his head and looked at Wan Yi. Wan Yi did not look at him. She was disinfecting the needle in her hand with an alcohol lamp. She slowly said, "There's a kind of medicine in Chinese medicine that stimulates the nerves called Shirsan, Shirsan and Shirsan. Have you heard of it?" A little while. After acupuncture, it can ensure that you can move normally for a short period of time. This is the origin of the name of this medicine. Really? Ling Han's eyes lit up. Don't be happy too early. I said it's for a short period of time. Wan Yi glanced at him. This medicine has a lot of side effects, especially when it's used in the way of acupuncture. It's very damaging to the body. If you want to use it, once you use it, it will delay the time when your legs can really walk for at least half a year. Do you still need to use it? Wan Yi looked at him. Haiyan Media's conference room. It was rare for the main production team of Remaining Life to gather together, except for Guan Nai. They sat together in a meeting to discuss the pre-screening in a few days. Gu Qi wore a pair of very refined gold-rimmed glasses and stood in front of the slide screen with a serious expression. The first batch of pre-screening this time is at Jinling Studios. So far, all the tickets for the pre-screening have been reserved. Our plan is to make Su Nianhua appear at the scene after the screening. This way, the audience won't be affected during the screening and we can get more honest feedback. After looking around, Gu Qi's eyes fell on Yi Huanyan. Yi Huanyan nodded. Let's do as you say, I have no objections. During the pre-screening process, the cinema will film the audience's reaction throughout the entire process, so that we can promote the second stage. While Gu Qi was talking about the promotion of the movie, Yi Huanyan kept her head down. She took out her phone and looked at it to see if she should agree with Gu Qi. If Gu Qi hadn't forced her to come to this meeting, she wouldn't have wanted to participate in it at all. She was only interested in making movies and writing scripts. What was the point of forcing her to do post-production work? Finally, the meeting came to an end. Gu Qi put a stack of documents on Yi Huanyan's table and looked back at Chen Yin. This is for the TV show tonight. You better read it carefully before you go, don't make any mistakes. Chen Yin was eating an apple when she glared at him unhappily. What do you mean by don't make any mistakes? I'm just a supporting actress. It's good enough that I can say a few words. Who knows, maybe the words I say will be edited out. Instead of worrying about me, you should worry about other people. Other people. Her words made Gu Qi frown. He ignored Chen Yin and looked directly at Yi Huanyan. Are you really letting Shang Anren go on this show? She has always been on bad terms with Guan Nai. This time, Guan Nai didn't go, but she did. Aren't you worried about what she will say? It can't be helped even if she says anything. Guan Nai ran back to Iceland after filming. We can't possibly lose the female lead during the promotion period, and even the second female lead, right? Between Guan Nai and Shang Anren, who do you think is better to invite to help with the promotion? Gu Qi was silent for a few seconds before he nodded. He kind of understood what Yi Huanyan meant. Inviting Guan Nai to act in the film was the biggest obstacle they had encountered during the entire filming process. In comparison, it was easier to invite Shang Anren, who was semi-retired. As for the rumors, Shang Anren must have gotten over it and wouldn't continue to pursue the past. A Weekend Date was one of the top 3 indoor entertainment variety shows in the country. Based on the format of interviews, there were a total of 5 hosts who interacted with the invited celebrity guests. Every episode had a theme. The theme of this episode that Yi Huanyan brought the entire cast of Remaining Life to participate in was First Love. In the dressing room, Chen Yin flipped through the program schedule in boredom. After flipping through 2 pages, she impatiently threw it aside. Seeing Yi Huanyan looking at it seriously, she reminded her, "Sis, the hosts will announce the program schedule later. It's okay if you don't look at it." Yi Huanyan raised her eyebrows and smiled. "You're so experienced. How many variety shows have you been on?" Chapter 487. Chen Yin scratched her head embarrassedly and chuckled. Just twice. Be more serious and familiarize yourself with the process. Yi Huanyan was a little helpless. This show is very popular. If you perform well, you might become famous overnight. Chen Yin muttered, I don't think being famous is a good thing. Ha. Nothing. Let me look at the process. Yi Huanyan actually heard what she said, but she pretended not to hear it. Before the recording of the show, Su Nianhua came to visit. He was wearing a well-ironed sapphire blue casual suit, cropped pants, and shiny leather shoes. His hair was also styled, revealing his delicate and handsome facial features. He was carrying a black paper bag in his hand and had a smile on his face. Yesterday, Jingjing and Xiao Rou went to the dessert shop to make chocolates and asked me to bring them to you. This small box is for Naneo. Chen Yin snatched it and raised her eyebrows. Is there a share for me? I made a lot. I was afraid that you wouldn't eat them when you were on a diet. Are you kidding me? I don't rely on losing weight to maintain my figure. I eat everything. As she spoke, Chen Yin had already opened the box of chocolates inside and stuffed a big one into her mouth. As she ate, she muttered, There are strawberry sandwiches. The strawberry sandwiches should be made by Xiao Rou, Su Nianhua explained. She likes strawberries more. I like them too. Chen Yin held the box of chocolates and refused to let go, looking like a bandit leader. Okay, I'll give them all to you. Just keep Naneo's share for him. Yi Huanyan rolled her eyes at her in annoyance. I just told you that you're not in the mood to go on the show, but you're in the mood to eat. Now that Chen Yin had the chocolates, she naturally didn't have the time to argue with Yi Huanyan. She hugged the box of chocolates and nestled in the corner of the dressing room, gorging on the chocolates. The makeup artist followed behind her and gasped. Sit. Yi Huanyan pulled up a chair and pointed it out to Su Nianhua. There was still some time before the program started recording, so it was enough for them to chat for a while. I heard that you guys have been living in the Ling family's old mansion recently? Su Nianhua asked. Yes, it's quiet over there. The Four Seasons villa is currently being renovated, so no one will be able to live there for at least half a year. So, I'm afraid we'll have to spend the spring festival there. Su Nianhua nodded. Jingjing has been saying that she wants to play with Naneo. Everyone has been too busy during this period of time. When the movie's promotional period is over, let's arrange a time for everyone to get together. Speaking of this, Yi Huanyan thought of the pleasure group's current situation. I heard from Remy at the company meeting this afternoon that your contract is still with the pleasure group. What's going on? Didn't you sign with other companies? Hearing this, Su Nianhua smiled. I renewed my contract with the pleasure group for 5 years. It would be ridiculous to terminate my contract after just half a year. Stop fooling around, Yi Huanyan said seriously. Most of the pleasure group's artists have privately signed with other media companies and can't get good resources. It's reasonable for you to break your contract. Besides, the pleasure group doesn't belong to Ling Han anymore. You don't have to ruin your future because of old feelings. My future? Su Nianhua looked up at Yi Huanyan. Actually, if you didn't ask me to star in this movie, I wouldn't have any future. I run around doing commercial performances every day and sing old songs from 10 years ago. Do you know what people say about me? Yi Huanyan's expression slightly froze. They say I can live for the rest of my life with just one famous song. Every commercial performance, the organizers always choose Infatuated Lover. But that song is just a commercial song in my eyes. 6 years was too long. Everything had changed. Su Nianhua, who used to be so popular, was now deserted. He relied on commercial performances to make a living. The concert tickets that used to be so hard to get were now mentioned as a distant memory. Yi Huanyan was silent for a few seconds. In the end he sighed. I'm sorry. What do you have to be sorry for? If you didn't come back, my life wouldn't have started over. It's pretty good the way it is now. Didn't you say that with this movie, I would definitely be popular again? Hearing this, Yi Huanyan looked up at him. After a while, he nodded heavily. Yes, I promise, this movie will definitely make you popular again. For many people, Su Nianhua was the symbol of their youth. When people got older, they would be nostalgic. The rush of nostalgia could easily lead to things that were once popular and make them stand out again. But you can really reconsider the termination of your contract. Su Nianhua avoided answering. Instead, he changed the topic and asked, "Let's not talk about this. Pleasure Group is going to be acquired recently. Did Ling Han say what to do?" Yi Huanyan shook his head with a worried expression. "I also heard that Venture Media wants to acquire Pleasure Group. Right now, Pleasure Group is under the control of Wan Siyuan. He's not a decisive person. He wouldn't dare to make such a big decision privately. However, Gu Qi heard that Umbo will be released from the police station in 2 days. When Umbo is released, I'm afraid he'll take the initiative to talk to Venture Media about the acquisition. Ling Han should also be considering the acquisition of Pleasure Group, but he doesn't have the ability to do so." "What's wrong?" "It's a financial problem." Yi Huanyan sighed. "My parents can't help him now. Gu's group is also seriously damaged this time. It was closed down before. Many businesses need to be compensated to customers. I asked my brother in private. Financially, there is no way to spare such a large sum of money to help Ling Han. And you should know that even if my father and brother want to help him, he may not be willing to accept it." "That's true." Su Nianhua nodded. "He has always been aloof. He should have a lot of friends before. Su Mang, the former chief editor of Fengshang, and Mr. Li, Su Mang's current husband, I remember that they have a good relationship with him. At the charity banquet, if he is willing to ask them for help, I'm afraid things will be much simpler." "Do you think he is willing to ask?" Yi Huanyan frowned. "Recently, he has been staying at home and not going out for a long time. Although he doesn't show anything on the surface, in fact, I think he must be uncomfortable in his heart. So I think he may not go to Fengshang's charity banquet." "Then what about your male companion?" "Yesterday, I asked Gu Qi. Gu Qi has arranged for me to walk the red carpet with Shang Anren. My mother asked me to walk with Ling Zhan this morning." Yi Huanyan responded casually. Suddenly, it occurred to her that Su Nianhua seemed to have never seen Ling Zhan, so she explained, "Ling Zhan is Ling Han's cousin. He just returned to China last night and lives in the old house." "Ling Zhan?" Su Nianhua silently repeated the name in his heart. His expression was a little complicated. The stage supervisor outside knocked on the door of the dressing room and said in a hurry, "Brother Hua, President Gu, it's time to record the broadcast. Get ready to go on stage." Su Nianhua responded, "I'll go back to the dressing room to get something first. Let's meet directly on stage later." Chapter 488. The recording of the show went smoothly. After a round of self-introductions, Yi Huanyan was arranged to sit on the sofa with the cast and crew. Opposite her were the 5 hosts, and there were some fruits and snacks in the middle as decorations. Other than Chen Yin, who couldn't control her mouth and occasionally ate a few mouthfuls, Shang Anren, Su Nianhua, and the second male lead, Bai Yu, didn't touch the things on the table. The focus of the audience was on the artists, so Yi Huanyan didn't feel like she was sitting on pins and needles like she had imagined. The male host of A Weekend Date, Zhou Xiaoyu, and his partner, Guan Na, were famous in the television station. The 2 partners had won the Golden Microphone Award 5 years in a row. The remaining 3 hosts didn't talk much, but they could throw out topics in time and control them freely so that the guests wouldn't feel awkward. Zhou Xiaoyu looked to be around 30 years old. He was very handsome and had become famous at a young age. He didn't have an impetuous aura. Instead, he had a scholarly aura. It was said that he used to be a Russian teacher at the Capital University of Political Science and Law. In comparison, Guan Na was much more lively. The 2 of them complemented each other well. Then, speaking of first love, I think 99% of the people here have it. Those who watch our show often know that we have never been a gossip show, so we definitely won't ask about the artist's privacy today. As Guan Na spoke, she turned her teasing gaze to Su Nianhua. We all know that Brother Hua has a very famous song called Write for Her. May I ask, is this her your first love or Miss Xiao Rou? Zhang Rou used to be the president of Su Nianhua's global fan club on Weibo, and her ID was Miss Xiao Rou. Later on, her marriage caused a huge uproar. This wasn't a secret. When Su Nianhua was interviewed, he was often asked about his wife at home. Although he wasn't in the industry, in this era of entertainment, he would always be teased by the hosts. Su Nianhua didn't think much of it and smiled very gently. It's written for my wife, Zhang Rou. Unexpectedly, Guan Na suddenly changed the topic. Oh. Then Xiao Rou isn't your first love. The audience was in an uproar, and the audience burst into laughter. Su Nianhua's expression froze slightly. Guan Na asked again, "It's just a joke." I heard that when Su Nianhua returned to China, he mentioned in an interview that it was because of a girl. Is that girl his first love? When Yi Huanyan heard the first half of the sentence, she had just breathed a sigh of relief for Su Nianhua when the second half of the sentence was thrown out without warning. She couldn't help but feel her heart tighten as she looked at Gu Qi, who was sitting below the stage. Gu Qi was also frowning, as if he hadn't expected this situation. Su Nianhua sat next to Chen Yin and was 2 people away from Yi Huanyan. At this moment, his expression was calm, as if he wasn't displeased by the host's relentless questions. After a few seconds of silence, he picked up the microphone and replied, 7 years ago, I returned to China for my first love in high school. The audience was in an uproar again. Yi Huanyan also broke out in cold sweat as her face paled a little. Even though Su Nianhua was no longer walking the path of an idol, it wasn't a very wise thing to do to reveal his past relationship on a television program. These days, if he acted pitifully, he wouldn't get any sympathy. Instead, it would cause the passerby fans to dislike him. First love in high school? Guan Na continued to ask, then why did you only return to China 7 years ago? How many years have passed since you came back to look for her? Su Nianhua nodded and didn't evade the question. Can you talk about her? Can you mention it? There's nothing that can't be mentioned. Su Nianhua straightened his body and said without a change in expression, she's a very good girl. She looks lively and doesn't have much of a personality, but she has her own opinions when it comes to matters. Whether it was the path of music or the path of acting, she was the one who pointed me in the right direction. She can be considered my benefactor in life. When I first returned to China, I actually felt guilty. At that time, I had already broken up with her for 10 years. 10 years. Isn't that puppy love? The male host, Zhou Xiaoyu, asked. He probably felt that Guan Na's attitude was abnormal today, so he had to mention his phone number to make the atmosphere more relaxed. The audience burst into laughter. Su Nianhua curled the corners of his mouth and revealed a somewhat helpless smile. Yes, puppy love. A puppy love that even his parents didn't approve of. It was also a puppy love that didn't match his background. You didn't contact her for 10 years? So you came back to China to get back together with her? At first, I had this idea, but after a while, I gave up on it. Why? She didn't agree? When it comes to love, the more a person has a clear conscience, the easier it is for them to let go. Back then, I left because I felt guilty, so I couldn't let go. Not long after I came back, she got married. The spectators were all sighing. Then you must feel very regretful. Not really. She's very good at comforting people, and she sees things more clearly than I do. It's not easy for first love to be friends like we are now. Guan Na seemed like she wanted to ask more questions, but Zhou Xiaoyu anxiously interrupted her. Look, when Su Nianhua was talking about his first love, Chan Yin kept eating non-stop. This is the first time I've seen a guest on our show actually finish an entire plate of pastries on the table. Do you want me to give you another plate? The originally gloomy atmosphere suddenly became lively. The camera on the big screen swept to Chen Yin's dazed expression after she finished eating. The audience immediately burst into laughter. Yi Huanyan's anxious heart also slowly calmed down. Later, when she was touching up her makeup during the intermission, Yi Huanyan took off the microphone on her chest and lowered her voice to ask Sun Yanhua, "Did you and Guan Na know each other before? Did you guys have a grudge? I think she's very aggressive." Sun Yanhua glanced at the stage and said calmly, "You could say that we had a little conflict. 7 years ago, when he was at the peak of his popularity back in China, he participated in all kinds of variety shows. After the national auditions for a singing show, he was one of the judges and gave Guan Na the lowest grade of F during the semi-finals. Usually, he wouldn't remember this kind of thing so clearly, but something happened after that day. Guan Na got a revival card from another judge and directly entered the finals. Since she's already in the finals, why is she still so unforgiving towards you?" Yi Huanyan frowned and looked a little puzzled. She didn't watch variety shows, so she wasn't sure what had happened that year. Sun Yanhua's eyes showed a hint of mockery. "Because I gave her the lowest grade of the show during the national broadcast of the finals. Because her average score was too low, she was directly eliminated. Even if she had connections with the show's organizers, there was nothing she could do." "You're going too far. Why are you being so aggressive?" Chen Yin, who was touching up her makeup, interrupted. She was holding a plate of mung bean cakes that the host had specially brought for her and was happily eating them. "I'm afraid she did something even worse?" Yi Huanyan's gaze was faint, as if she understood something. Sun Yanhua nodded slightly and said very calmly, "At that time, I had just returned to China and was very arrogant. I never thought that something like the unspoken rules would happen to me." You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.